Hey there, guys, and welcome back to the Travis and Damian podcast, episode 76. We are available on anchor.fm/Travis Damian podcast, along with Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. If you guys would like to ask us any questions, you can leave a voice message at the anchor link or in the YouTube comment section. Today, we're going to be talking about gaming and entertainment news, including PlayStation's Game Pass competitor and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Then we'll talk about our recent activities, such as Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker and Your Name, Another Side, Earthbound. Next, our discussion on the Game Awards 2021. Afterwards, our thoughts on Hawkeye episodes 3 and 4. Lastly, our discussion on another Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy and our live-action Spider-Man movie tier list. So, first piece of news is pretty big for the Twitch world and streaming world in general. Ludwig, probably one of, if not the biggest streamer on Twitch, has now moved to YouTube Gaming. So, he announced that he was going to be moving there on November 29th, and then the next day he was going to move to YouTube. So yeah, this is pretty big news. I think that the fact that YouTube is willing to pay out these big streamers on Twitch to move to their platform is telling, and the fact that they are willing to do so and make these moves and actually be somewhat successful is also kind of insane. I know Ludwig, he actually got banned a couple times on YouTube. Already, I think it hasn't even been a month yet, but he's already been banned like a handful of times on YouTube because I think he was playing music or something like that. So, and that's funny because the promo video,
not in this car.
Yeah, not in this car, but it is what it is. It's definitely, cool to see competition thrive. Obviously not in the way that people would like, where people will just willingly move to platforms, but when you have these big streamers, you got to throw the bag, you got to sort of cut the check and get them to move to your platform with a contract. So it's all part of the game, and the fact that Ludwig has moved over there and, like I said, has found the same amount of success that he has on Twitch in a way is kind of insane. So
yeah, I mean, I think he already had an audience on YouTube, didn't he?
Yeah, probably from like his highlights and all this other stuff. So
yeah, so it makes sense that it wouldn't really hurt him that much. But I think he does. I don't really watch Ludwig too much. Like, I kind of just watch him whenever. Like, but I don't really like. I'm not like a viewer of his. I know he does like a lot of React stuff, right? So that's why he keeps getting banned, because it's like I think he was like watching like Baby Shark, and then he just gets like murked like immediately. Just goodbye. So yeah, YouTube definitely has a lot more automated systems to like just delete you if you do anything wrong. But luckily, it looks like he has fixed all of that. I don't know how many times he could really get away with it, because I think by like the fourth time, it's like, okay, stop it. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know which platform is better or worse. Like, I think like both being, obviously competition is always good, so they're both going to like improve from each other, but it really is what you prefer at this point, or whoever gives you more money at the end of the day. Some people just like the YouTube community. They like how, they don't really like the Twitch vibe of stuff, and vice versa. People just like Twitch because of the emotes and stuff and all that. So yeah, it's kind of weird to see, but I like to see the competition and stuff. And YouTube Gaming seems to really be the only competition to Twitch, since Mixer got destroyed like last year, I think it was. So which sucks. I think Mixer probably could have, they probably should stick it out for another year. I think they really killed it way too early. But that's just me. Like, I think they probably could have done more to improve it instead of just giving up on it. But always good to see like another major competitor, and if YouTube could help improve Twitch and vice versa, that's that's good to see.
Yeah, I think because Ludwig is such a big like reactor sort of streamer, I guess YouTube is like, hey yo, like what the fuck are you doing here? And then it's like, oh wait, we actually signed you for like millions of dollars. Shit, we probably shouldn't ban you. But automated systems and all this other stuff. I'm sure, they didn't expect those automated systems to catch them like that so quickly. So, at least they know the systems are working in a way. But, I'm not a fan or watcher of Ludwig. I know that, I pop in every once in a while, but not, a huge watcher of his content. I definitely tune in when he does like those big like tournaments of like games that I watch. I think the last one that he did was like the Auto Pets or whatever. Yeah. So, I was definitely in those streams and sort of just like hanging out, seeing what people were doing there. But yeah, I'm sure that he's happy with YouTube just because of money wise, and The fact that he was able to retain his community in a way, moving from one platform to another. I mean, so many other Twitch content creators have already done it. Dr. Lupo, Tim the Tap Man, Courage, Valkyrie, etc. So, this is nothing entirely new, but the fact that it is Ludwig, literally probably the biggest breakout streamer in Twitch over the past, 2 years or something like that?
Yeah.
It's kind of big, so...
Yeah, it is pretty crazy that this was able to happen. I really didn't see him moving anytime soon, but here it is. Mostly because he did the whole 72 hour stream or whatever he did, where it was that giant subathon thing or whatever. So that's pretty crazy. But for the next bit of news, and it's kind of funny. So Take-Two trademark claims on It Takes Two, the video game, because they suck. So apparently they have patents. Also on other words as well, like Rockstar, Social Club, Mafia, Civilization for, their other games as well. And, we've already seen this before in gaming. I don't know if you remember when Bethesda was trying to copyright Scrolls. It was this card game made by Mojang or something, the people that made Minecraft. They were like, oh, you can't use Scrolls because we own the trademark for Elder Scrolls, so you can't do that. And, that's really dumb, and everyone fought that back. So it's basically the same situation here, but obviously Takes Two, that's the name of the publisher, and they're like, hey, you can't use It Takes Two because we have that, and that's really dumb because It Takes Two is a pretty common name for things. So don't really know why this is such a big issue, and especially now they're just oh, now we're gonna make a big stink about it. Why?
Yeah, especially for how long this game has been announced and sort of been out there in the world, and now they're sort of making a whole fuss about it. It's a little weird, a little strange, and I think that Candy Crush or another mobile game tried to do something along the side like this. Anyways, this is, at the end of the day, this is all legal mumbo jumbo that I honestly don't understand anything about when it comes to files and patents, etc., etc. I know nothing about this stuff, but the fact that they're trying to use those sort of legal methods to sort of get these games and get these sort of publishers and creators down because they're using names and words that are associated with their own thing or whatever. It's a little strange. It's a little weird. And just at the end of the day, you're not really making any friends when you're making moves like this. You're really just making enemies for whatever reason it is, whether it's money or just trying to be an asshole. But yeah, I mean, It Takes Two, it's a fantastic game, as we'll talk about much more later, but, Take-Two sort of coming in as a publisher, mind you, not as a game, as a publisher, and just being like, hey, that's our name. I mean, it's not really, it's just, you decided your name to be sort of common words, and, they also happen to use common words, so, and then they put it, and then instead of take, it takes, so I don't, yeah,
it's basically really stupid, and I don't know why they even care. You know what I mean? I don't know what danger this has to their company or to their brand or anything. If anything, we're talking about later, it won Game of the Year, so if anything, you should be happy. So yeah, I don't really get it. Take-Two already has a really bad reputation anyway. So the fact that they're just want to keep being the evil corporate man, whatever, I guess, it is really dumb, but what are you gonna do? Bad companies are gonna continue being bad companies. So
yeah, you're sort of digging themselves a grave, if you will. But
yeah.
Moving on, this is totally unexpected. Garfield was announced to be a playable character in Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl. So, yeah, I mean, one thing I found on Twitter that was funny was that someone was trying to fake news that, Garfield wasn't going to be playable on Mondays, which was hilarious, but I think that has been debunked very, very quickly. But Garfield in the game, alongside these other Nickelodeon All-Stars, he looks pretty cool. I'm gonna be honest. Garfield, he's obviously a meme character just because of who the character is. It's a goddamn orange cat that eats lasagna and he's lazy and he hates Mondays. And yeah, I mean, this is sort of a legendary sort of mascot character within entertainment, and the fact that he is in this sort of Smash Bros fighting game alongside SpongeBob, Ninja Turtles, Danny Phantom, etc. is a little funny. Now, the nature and the sort of status of Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl within like the platformer fighter community has been slowly dying out, but I'm sure that this Garfield announcement has definitely brought eyes back onto it, and I think that that's how this game will remain within the public's eye, if you will, with the new characters and new patches, new stages, etc. Pretty much just like updating the game like with any other, I guess, game these days. Is you update it, you add new content, and it sort of keeps yourself relevant in a way, not to where it was when it was first announced, obviously, but it keeps people in mind like, oh yeah, there is this sort of Nickelodeon Smash Bros. Like game out there.
Yeah, it helps that the character is free as well. Like, you don't have to like buy him. I think that's really good for, keeping the population of the game, up, and like making sure people have interest in the game, because it definitely has fall off a bit since it came out. Because I think the online definitely didn't help it. Like, it just wasn't like a good online experience, which is what was sort of the main point of the game. So it kind of sucks they couldn't deliver on that promise. But yeah, Garfield himself looks really good. Like, I think his model looks good. His attack animations look neat. Like, he just looks like, a fun character, even though, again, he's a meme character. But, I think people like meme characters, so I think it's fine. This is actually an interesting note that Garfield actually was leaked a little bit before, because there's sort of like a file of the announcer dude who announces like the names of the characters, and Garfield was one of the names he said. There was like a bunch of other characters. Like, I bet, obviously not all of them are gonna be like in the game, but there were some like more interesting ones. Like I think Jimmy Neutron was there and stuff. Like there was some other characters as well. But Garfield was definitely the most like oddball one there. So yeah, kind of cool to see him, in this game, I guess.
Yeah, and he's already out for anyone that actually does want to play him. I believe he was released yesterday on the 9th. So, yeah, I mean, he does look like a fun, cool character to sort of add into the roster of these other cartoony-like characters. Because I think that, he definitely fits within the roster despite... I'm not sure if he has a history with Nickelodeon, if you will, but, this somehow fits in within the game, I guess.
I think he had like one show in Nickelodeon. No, it was that Cartoon Network. I don't know why the hell he's in this game, but sure, whatever. It fits. All right, so next bit of news here. PlayStation is going to be releasing their own competitor to the Xbox Game Pass. So if you don't know how like the whole PlayStation stuff works, you basically have two things. You have PS Now, which is like the streaming thing where you can stream PS3 games and I think PS4 games as well. And that's like a separate sub fee. And then you have PS Plus is what's been around for a while, which is like, you get online and you get some discounts and free games like every month. So it looks like now they're maybe changing that. So this is going to be offered on PS4 and PS5, obviously. And it's going to have 3 tiers, right? So the first one is going to be like PS Plus benefits, right? It's just going to be PS Plus. Second tier is going to be a large library of PS4 games and PS5 games eventually. So I guess that's kind of like bringing in like the PS Now, or I guess the PS Plus collection, right? Does that. So, But the more interesting thing is the tier 3 stuff, which is extended demos, game streaming, a library of classic PS1, PS2, PS3, and PSP games. So that's pretty cool. So I mean, they're combining PS Now and PS Plus together, basically, which is cool because I think that's what they should have done to begin with. Because I think PS Now was already like too expensive of a thing to really get. Like, I've always thought about getting it just to try it, but I'm like, is it really worth it? Probably not. And this is still cool because obviously I think PS2, PS3 games and PSP games are kind of hard to play at this point. Not so much for PS1 games. Like, I think there's a lot of ways to play PS1 games at this point, but especially PS3 games are really hard to play nowadays. So I think this is really cool. It does kind of bum me out that it's game streaming still. It's not like you could just download them. That's a little lame still because I think I prefer to just download the game and not have no latency or anything interfering with the controls or anything. I think a lot of people would feel that way. Yeah. But I think this is a step in the right direction though. Like, I think this is a good answer to the Game Pass system that Xbox uses because Game Pass is fantastic. Like, I think no one can really argue about the value of Game Pass. So it was really cool to see Sony get in there because I think Sony has a lot of great, like a good library of games from now to like the PS1. So it's good to see them fully utilize it instead of just like not using it at all.
Yeah, I mean, the code name for this new program is called Spartacus, and the fact that they are bringing their legacy library into the service is kind of like a no-brainer, and they definitely should have done this a long time ago. I think that The fact that it is game streaming is a bit of a downside, 100%. I remember a couple years back when PlayStation Now first came out, when you could like stream, I think it was like PS3 games or something, and someone was trying to play a certain game, and there was a queue time for it. It was like, wait, what the fuck? Someone,
yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, streaming games is still like super duper new and super duper complicated, and I'm sure that there's going to be obviously some input delay and some lag, and it's not going to be the ideal way to play these games, obviously, but it is definitely going to be the most accessible way to play them once this competitor does come out at all, and I think that them utilizing, like I said, their legacy library of games, especially with the PS2 and PS3 games, and even PSP to a certain extent, because a lot of people have fond memories of playing certain games on there, like Daxter, and whatever other PSP games are out there.
Yeah, you got like Size Matters and the God of War ones.
Mm-hmm. So, there's definitely a lot of games out there that I can't remember on the top of my head, but I'm sure that there's people out there that have extreme fond memories of playing games on the PSP and especially the PS2 and PS3. A lot of those games that didn't get ported onto the PS4, those games are pretty much like just lost. Like all of those Ratchet and Clank games you can't play unless you have a PlayStation 3. And you could say the same thing for the Sly Cooper games. I'm a huge Sly Cooper fan, and the fact that there hasn't been a collection to update those games to have them be playable on the PS4 or PS5 makes them locked behind PS2 and PS3 sort of barriers. And if we are able to play those games on the PlayStation 5 or the PS4 with this new service, and PlayStation is able to see certain numbers of like certain games and certain legacy titles, be like, hey, like there's a lot of people playing this certain legacy title, maybe we should consider bringing them back to the PlayStation 5 and maybe have a collection or like a new game, whatever the case is, and this is definitely like a good way for them to sort of gauge what people want in gaming and sort of like what future IPs, because especially with the recent E3 and PlayStation presentations, they are definitely lacking in like a lot of IPs. They're still piggybacking on God of War, Spider-Man, etc. Like these titles, we've known that they are making games for these series for a while now. And I think that ever since that one E3 where Sony sort of like popped off, if you will, where they showed off the new Spider-Man game, the new God of War game, Last of Us 2, etc. And then after that, they sort of just kept showing those games over and over again. And I feel like that they're sort of stagnating. So, obviously, like this is obviously like a super duper off topic sort of thing, but this service can definitely help them gauge what people want within the PlayStation community.
Yeah, I mean, there's still like a lot of rumors about Sly 5. Again, I don't know how true that is, but it's getting like more and more louder. Like a lot of people say that it's gonna happen, so I don't know. I don't want to get your hopes up.
Don't give me hope.
But I think, like I said, I think this is a good way to sort of gauge interest, because I like the direction Sony has been going. I like a lot of their new IPs. Same thing with the old IPs, obviously. But it would be cool to see some of their more wackier games come back. Like, again, like Sly would be cool to come back. Obviously, Ratchet, came back. I mean, he's been here, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. A lot of the other games, like fucking Ape Escape. I don't know if you really want like a new Ape Escape and stuff. So yeah, it'd be cool to see some of the more wacky like family stuff. I mean, even like Astrobot could have like a full game at this point. I wouldn't be opposed to that, because I really like the sort of PS5 demo that was there. So I think this is just a great thing overall. And a lot of people didn't even experience a lot of these games, because again, they're locked behind PS3. There was a lot of PS2 collections on PS3, but you can't really play those on PS4. Like I still have my fat ass PS3 right here from like 2006, because like that's the only way to play like Ratchet or Sly or anything like that. I know Jack got ported, but I think the ports on PS4 sucked, so like you're probably better off just playing the PS3 collection. But hopefully this is good. That's all I'm hoping for, because I think we're both big fans of a lot of the Sony IPs, especially from the PS2 days. So if this is like a good service, and I really hope there's an option to download at some point, because I would rather do that. But this is a very promising sign. If it's good, I would definitely like shell out a few more bucks for it.
Yeah, and definitely price point, because this is within 3 tiers. So I'm wondering on how much they're actually going to be charging you yearly, I would say. Because like, per month, like you could probably get away with a service like this. I think PS Plus, if you subscribe for 1 month, is like $10 or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like $60 for a year. So.
Yeah, so like if they were to do it monthly, I would say like if you want the 3 tier for just a month, I think like $20 is like a pretty good spot. $25 at most, because it obviously depends on what they're launching with the libraries, right? Because like if they're launching like what Nintendo does, which I fucking doubt it, where it's like 5 games, I'm sure that PlayStation, if they were to launch the service, they want to make sure that they have thousands of games booted up across everything together, not thousands for just the PS1 alone, but like all together for PS1, PS2, PS3, PSP, at least however many games they can get on there. $25 a month, I think that is the most I would be willing to pay, and I'm sure that $20 is definitely like the better spot for it. And I think yearly they might be able to get away with $100 a year. I don't know, because this is definitely something that you have to utilize. Obviously, with like any service, you just have to like utilize and how much you're actually going to be using these services on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, etc. So it just depends on how much you think is worth it. And I think that, something around the $100 range is good for a year. I think anything more than that, people are going to be like, ooh, yikes,
Yeah. The only problem with Game Pass and something like this is, it's not something I would like cover as a reoccurring thing, because I would probably just like, okay, I want to play Ratchet and Clank, so I'm gonna like sub for a month, play like get my fix out, and just leave it alone. Like same thing with Game Pass. I used it a little bit, and like, okay, I want to play this one thing, so I'm gonna like sub for a month and like just play it, and then that's it. So it's not really something I would like to keep around, because I'm not always gonna use the service. Like PS Plus, if you play online on PlayStation, you kind of need it. Or something like Netflix or what, all those other subs like you're gonna use more. Like for something like this is like more of a time investment. So yeah, it's definitely something I would like hop in for like a month and like do whatever I wanted to do and then like sub out. So but yeah, it's a very interesting service, and I'm happy to see Sony is doing it. I hope they don't do what Nintendo is doing, where one, that like shoddy ports, that would be really bad, and two, and obviously the controls is not something where I worry about, because PlayStation used the same exact controls throughout its whole life, so that's nice.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like, I hope they have a good library of games from the start. Like they need like Crash and Spyro and like all the other like big IPs from the start. Also, what's the point, right? Like if you're missing like Crash or something, like what are you doing? So yeah, so hopefully they have like a bunch of games ready to play, and there's not too much to add later on, because that's always kind of dumb when it's like, okay, we don't have Ratchet and Clank, but we'll add it later. Like that's dumb. So hopefully they have like a good library of games from the start, so we could just like have a good service immediately,
Yeah, and like the way Microsoft is, I guess, pricing their Game Pass right now is that you pay $15 a month and you get gold and the Game Pass stuff all together. And then there's a tier below that where it's just the PC Game Pass or the console Game Pass for $10. And obviously that doesn't include gold because, it's obviously a separate thing. But, obviously like these prices are super duper cheap, and Microsoft can get away with this because they're fucking Microsoft, and I'm sure Sony could also get away with a pricing like this, but I doubt it. I feel like Sony's a little more greedy when it comes to the bag, and I think we've seen that several times throughout the year where they've, done some stuff where, for example, with the Horizon Forbidden West sort of like collector's edition, where it doesn't come with a physical disc and all of this other stuff, which we won't get into, but Sony's definitely a little more greedy than Microsoft. So I'm sure that once pricing's announced, if it's a little too high up, Twitter will definitely let them know. I will say that.
Yeah, they definitely will. Don't worry, the internet really makes it known when they're angry at you.
All right, so next bit of news we got is Nick Offerman has been cast as Bill for HBO's The Last of Us series. So I believe they already had a Bill, but there was something wrong with there. I think there was a scheduling conflict or whatever. So they got Nick Offerman. And if you guys don't know who he is, I believe he was in Park and Rec. I think that is one of his more iconic roles, and he's been in other stuff that I am not too familiar with because I don't really know this actor. But just by looking at him, he can play Bill, like 100%. I think the Variety article does a pretty good like side-by-side comparison from the game to Nick Offerman, and I'm sure that he is a fantastic actor, and he'll be able to deliver this role as gracefully as the other people already cast for this show, such as Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. So yeah, I mean, I think that this adaptation of The Last of Us, just from the cast alone, is looking like it's going to be pretty good. And the fact that Neil Druckmann, the original creator and sort of like the head of this franchise and also one of the big people at Naughty Dog behind this project, I think that this series can do really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, I think like the Uncharted and this like Last of Us are going to be pretty easy to adapt for, mostly for like people that are like already like they don't play video games, right? Like I think Last of Us is just like a good zombie thing like with, you know, obviously it has like more things going on. It's not just a zombie thing, obviously, but you know, to the general public, like I think it's gonna be like a hit, honestly. Like I think there's been kind of a lack of like zombie stuff in general at this point, or like, at least good zombie stuff, because Walking Dead kind of like sucks. I think it's over at this point, but you know, like, you know, Walking Dead kind of just kept going on way too long, and hasn't really been anything since like that. So it's gonna be cool to see like The Last of Us, or maybe take its place and be like, you know, more gritty, like more mature than Walking Dead was, because Walking Dead got really dumb by the end of it. So, you know, I really need to play the games for myself, because I still never played Last of Us in my life. I might know everything that happens, but you know, hopefully this is a good adaptation. Hopefully, like, you know, does enough things to make it a little different from the original game, so it's not like too much of the same for people that are very fans of it. But still, like, you know, respecting the original game, which, you know, I don't think that's going to be a problem, because, you know, Druckmann's like doing the thing for it, so like it should be fine. But yeah, I think it's in good hands. You know, I think when it comes to these live action adaptations, which we're going to talk about for our next piece, it's hard to get right a lot of the time. It just doesn't feel right. But I think with Last of Us, I think it's going to do just fine, just because it lends itself to be like a live action series or movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like when it comes to video games, to other pieces of media, I think Arcane has like set the bar way too high in some regards, if you will. You know, like definitely.
No, Arcane is definitely the best video game adaptation I've seen, I think.
Yeah, and it is so hard to sort of meet that bar, and it's sort of unknown with these sort of more mature series in terms of like how they'll do well, because, you know, when it comes to Sonic, you know, the Sonic movie did well. The Sonic 2 movie trailer was fantastic, and I'm sure that movie will hopefully be just as good, if not a little bit better. And like we just said with Arcane was a series that literally took over Netflix and sort of took over the general entertainment industry, if you will. You know, a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people were just watching that show and they had no idea what League of Legends was. And I think that The Last of Us can do that in a way, just because the characters of Joel and Ellie are so rich and so strong. Their story of how, you know, they came together and sort of how they met and how they survive within this zombie apocalyptic world, you know. And I think that this story can work, and especially with the cast and the people behind working on it, it can achieve great things. And I cannot wait to see the first trailer for it, because we've already seen a screenshot of just the backs of Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, sort of seeing them in their costumes, and that was just everything I needed, honestly. So, you know, Nick Offerman as Bill, I think that he can do great things in this role, and I cannot wait to see what this series has in store. So
yeah, I definitely like to play the game first before I like watch it, because I like to do that. I like to have a good comparison to see how well they did. Like, I think it's just a neat thing to really do that. So, but yeah, we'll see when the show actually comes out, and if it, you know, could live up to The Last of Us, because, you know, to a lot of people, that's like some of the best game experiences like ever. You know what I mean? So. Hopefully they don't mess it up. Well, speaking of something that did mess it up, Netflix's Cowboy Bebop got canceled after one season, and the show debuted on November 19th, so it really didn't last very long until Netflix just canned it, which is pretty unusual, since Netflix usually likes to give almost everything a season 2, and I don't think they've ever said something got canceled like immediately after it came out. So, you know, it did bad. So I have some stats here. So obviously the first 10 episodes only got 46% on Rotten Tomatoes for critics. And for fans, only got 56% on Rotten Tomatoes, so obviously not great. Apparently, it did do pretty well when it first came out in terms of views. It got 74 million viewing hours worldwide, but apparently it plummeted by 59% the following week. So it seems like the drop-off was a lot. Like, people probably heard it was bad, or people probably only watched the first episode, didn't feel like watching it anymore, and just stopped. And that's probably what killed it, was just the lack of engagement from like viewers, which I guess is very important for Netflix, obviously, because that's how they make money.
Yes.
And yeah, it is pretty sad to see, because, you know, I think the set design and like the character designs for the show looked pretty good. I just heard the writing just wasn't there. Like, it just didn't do a good job like adapting a lot of things. But I heard the actors really looked like they were enjoying themselves a lot, which is, you know, it's always pretty sad to see. You know, it's sad to see that you didn't get a second season to kind of rectify those mistakes and like keep the actors, but maybe get new writers or something and just better adapt the material. But yeah, it is kind of sad to see, but, you know, I guess that's just how it is. And when it comes to anime adaptations, I think it's just really hard to do, because anime is such a crazy thing and very different from Western like media, that's hard to adapt that energy to, especially to live action. You know what I mean? I think it's easier to adapt Western stuff to anime, like Star Wars or Matrix, when they have the Animatrix, or like Star Wars Visions, because I feel like it's like you can just do crazy things with that. If you try to take an anime into a Western thing and try to make it more grounded, it just feels kind of dumb. So at least that's my opinion of it. It just kind of lacks the energy that anime has. But yeah, it is sad to see it like just die though.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched it yet. I've only seen clips and snippets and all this other stuff. But, it's kind of hard to, sit down and actually watch this show coming in knowing that everyone literally hates it and no one has really said anything super duper good about it, I did watch the Trash Taste Boys sort of like react to it on the Netflix sort of like YouTube channel. And obviously like that's sort of like within like their own like filter bubble, they're going to say good things so Netflix can keep calling them and do these like sort of sponsored things in a way. So there's always that thing looming over my head, whether those reactions they did were genuine or not. It's for you to decide, in my opinion. That's definitely a little bit of a conflict of interest where it's like they definitely want to say good things, but are they really saying good things because they want to or because they're in that little bubble? Anyways, it definitely sucks that this series isn't getting a season 2 because in a related article, I think literally a couple hours later, co-executive producer, he came out on Twitter and he said that it sucks that he wasn't able to get a season 2 because they had so much planned, and he loved working on this show, and it just sucks to see that the people behind the show, the people involved with this show, they're not able to deliver the full story of Cowboy Bebop, which is unfortunate, and that really sucks, but it is what it is. I'm sure that they knew the risks coming in, the fact that they were doing a anime adaptation into live action, and they've seen what happens to those on Netflix, especially. So, seeing another one of these bites the dust isn't necessarily surprising, but the fact that it was pulled so soon definitely shows that Netflix was like, all right, we fucking put a lot of money into this shit and it didn't work out. All right, we'll just end it here, which that sucks. It is what it is. I'll definitely give my full thoughts when I eventually watch this show. It is only 10 episodes long, and I'm sure that it's not going to be as good as the original anime, just because the anime has so much style, so much going for it when it comes to a anime. It's just super hard to adapt that into live action. I'm sure there's going to be some enjoyable bits and some things that I'll like from it. I mean, I think I've already said this before when we talked about the show. I think that the costumes and the casting was definitely good, like definitely fine. I had no problem with John Cho as Spike, and I think that the other characters definitely look and fit their role nicely. So like I said, definitely sucks that the people working on this, they loved what they were doing. They loved that they were able to work on Cowboy Bebop in this way, and it just sucks that they aren't going to be able to return to it on Netflix. So
yeah. Are they doing is the One Piece thing also a Netflix thing? Is that what?
I have no idea, but
okay.
It could be. I think that One Piece as a live action,
that definitely is not gonna work.
I have no idea how they're gonna emulate Luffy's fucking stretchy arms with the fucking CG. Like I'm sure most of the budget is gonna go into special effects and visual effects, because with Cowboy Bebop, it's just space
it's
cowboys.
Grounded for the most part. Yeah,
it's definitely a lot more grounded compared to these other anime adaptations that are live action. So but yeah, Cowboy Bebop is definitely, we still have the anime, but this live action series is now over.
Yeah, see you Space Cowboy.
Yeah, see you soon, Space Cowboy. All right, so last bit of news is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1.
Hell yeah.
So this first look at it was honestly perfect. I think that seeing the animation style of Spider-Verse again after all of these years within this first look, it was amazing, fantastic. Miles sort of a little bit grown up is super duper cool. I think that the fact that they aged him up a bit since the last time we saw him is very, very nice. Seeing him interact with Spider-Gwen is obviously super duper fun, super duper funny. The memes that have come out from this when she opens the book and people have drawn different things, different aspects.
Crazy, bro.
Yeah, and the memes and the commentary that people have created just on that one scene alone from this first look is kind of crazy and kind of insane. But seeing Miles and seeing everyone sort of move and interact in the way of the Spider-Verse movie is so much fun. And seeing his new suit, I think that it's a little different. and that's fine. But it still looks like Miles Morales, like we can still recognize that is Miles Morales, the Spider-Man. And yeah, I think that this movie is definitely gonna take time for it to come out, obviously. Like I definitely want to watch this as soon as possible, but whenever they get it done is when they get it done, because you cannot rush perfection, as I told Damian.
Yeah, I literally watched it. I'm like, bruh. So yeah, we're gonna talk about in our Spider-Man tier list. Well, I guess not because it's live action, but if it was, I'll put an S tier.
I mean, yes, 100%. That should go in S tier.
Yeah. But yeah, Spider-Verse is definitely like my favorite Spider-Man movie ever. I love it so many. I just love it. I watched it so many times. And yeah, it looks like, I'm just happy like a lot of the vibes are like the same. Like the animation still looks fantastic. Like especially when he was fighting Spider-Man 2099, like that looked amazing. Like I watched that whole sequence like a lot because just how amazing it is animated. Like I love it. But even just like when Miles and Gwen were talking, I just love like it had the same vibe that the first movie did, which is great because I thought the first movie's writing was so good and like it was really funny, and it seems like it's really keeping that same energy. And like you said, I really love how they're like aging up Miles as well. Like he definitely doesn't look like how he looked in the first movie. He definitely looks a little older. So I think that's a interesting, way to like have this movie go on, is like, how Miles like grow up and if he did anything as Spider-Man or whatever, and like, all his Avengers he did like past the first movie. I think that's pretty neat. The only thing that concerns me is the part one. Like I'm not a big fan of when movies sort of split themselves too much. At least this movie, I guess, tells you like straight up like this is part one.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder how big of a story they're gonna tell here and how good it's gonna flow. You know what I mean? Because I think like for the most part, like I said, I'm not a big fan of that. Like, I think Infinity War and Endgame were a little different. I think it did that one pretty okay. But some other movies, I just feel like it's kind of unnecessary and just doing it for like padding. Like freaking Hunger Games kind of did that. Like I probably wasn't that into it by the time it was like ending, but it was still like annoying. I think Harry Potter did it too. It was like Harry Potter was one of the first ones that did it. So, but yeah, it really depends on how they do it. I have faith though, because I love this movie a lot, and I'm really happy that it's getting like a sequel that looks this amazing. So I'm gonna put a benefit of the doubt, but we're just gonna have to see it until it comes out. And I think it's coming out next year, right?
I believe so. It is coming out October 2022.
Oh yeah, October 7th, 2022. So definitely I'm very excited for it. I just love how much is like the first one, because that just makes me happy.
Yeah, and going off of the whole part one thing, that definitely took me by surprise, because I think the name for this movie was leaked a while ago because someone put it on their LinkedIn, and then people were like, oh shit, like you're working on the new Spider-Man movie, huh? Across the Spider-Verse, but the fact that it is part one of two, probably two, hopefully it's not more than that, but them splitting this story into two parts, I hope that this story is as grand and as big that warrants two movies, because like you said, after Harry Potter, the last movie was split into two parts. Literally everyone was doing it. Hunger Games did it. Twilight did it, for fuck's sake. Twilight did it. So, and it's been a while since movies have really done that. And I think that with the MCU in particular, the fact that Infinity War and Endgame are sort of like the part one and part two, but it wasn't sort of like extremely clear, so when people went to go see Infinity War, they didn't know that it was going to end on a cliffhanger like it did. So now when I'm going to be watching this movie, I'm going to be like, all right, well, now I kind of like don't know where it's going to end, because it can really end at any time. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely going to, keep me on the edge of my seat, but not in a good way. But yeah, I mean, seeing these characters once again, I think that the fact that this was people's introduction to Miles Morales is great. And I think that when he gets his eventual introduction into the MCU, they're going to have to be very, very careful and very, very delicate with how they bring that character into the world, because, the fact that Miles Morales was sort of introduced within Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse so nicely and eloquently, and, sort of brought these other Spider-Man to sort of bring him up and sort of teach him in a way who to be and how to be Spider-Man, if you will, and that anyone could really take on the mask and shit like that, like that's why Into the Spider-Verse is such a good Spider-Man movie, and on top of the animation, the music, etc. But yeah, Across the Spider-Verse part one, I am obviously very, very excited for it, and I cannot wait to see what Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen have in store, because the 2099 Spider-Man, that's going to be like the first big screen adaptation of this character, so I hope that they're able to treat him well, because the only experience I have with this character is with the Spider-Man games. So
yeah, Shadow Dimensions and Edge of
time. Yes, you are correct.
So, and I like that game. It wasn't as good as Shadow Dimensions. It was still pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, very excited. Also, like, just Spider-Man fans are eating good, man. Like, we got a lot of good shit lately. It's been good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, so let's talk about our recent activities. I'll actually go first because a lot of these are super duper quick. So first up, Ghostbusters Afterlife. I forgot to talk about this last episode. I immediately jotted this down after we finished last episode. But Ghostbusters Afterlife. I've never watched a Ghostbusters movie, but our good friend Louis invited me to join him, and I was like, sure, why not? You know, because I resubscribed to AMC A-List because of Spider-Man No Way Home. So I was like, screw it, I'll go watch this movie with them. You know, see what it's all about. It's a new Ghostbusters movie. That's all I really knew about it. And it's sort of like a soft reboot. So sort of think of like Star Wars, The Force Awakens or something like that. So it definitely hinges on the past movies, but not too much. It brings in a lot new characters, and you sort of get to know who these new characters are and how they relate back to the old ones. I don't want to talk about it too much just because I'm not a Ghostbusters fan, like I said, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I honestly came out of the theater enjoying it a lot more than I expected. I honestly thought this was going to be a fucking dumpster fire. I thought that this was going to be super duper bad. Not as bad as the all-female Ghostbusters movie, but I thought that this movie was going to not stick the landing, but it thankfully did. And yeah, it was definitely a blast to watch, especially because we saw it Thursday night where a lot of the Ghostbusters fans were coming in to see it. So you know, hearing their reactions and hearing them laugh to these dumbass jokes, and I'm just like, that was kind of corny, but okay. You know, definitely that theater experience definitely helped a lot, and yeah, definitely enjoyed this movie. If you never watched a Ghostbusters movie, you know, maybe give it a shot when it goes on a streaming service or something like that, but I would not recommend going out of your way to watch it unless you want to, you know. The Komi anime, I recently just watched the newest episode on Netflix. What can I say about this show that hasn't already been said by myself? It's a fantastic adaptation of the manga. It's pretty much about this girl named Komi who has a hard time communicating, but that doesn't mean she doesn't want to form friendships and relationships. So you have this character named Tano who's going to help her get 100 friends, and you sort of meet all of these wacky, interesting characters within their classes, and it's fun, it's goofy. Every single episode does like different scenarios, just like how the manga does it, where like each chapter could be like 5 pages long, which is like pretty short, and they sort of adapt the good ones into the anime, not all of them obviously, but yeah, it's definitely fun to see these characters interact, sort of see them talk, except for Komi, but you know, seeing this manga get adapted into a anime so elegantly, gracefully, with the animation actually being super duper good for a slice of life. The music, the opening and endings are definitely my favorite parts, you know, to see within every single episode. But yeah, the Demon Slayer anime, so we're finally on the Entertainment District arc. Not gonna spoil.
I need to watch it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Not gonna spoil anything. What I can say about the Mugen Train, the TV adaptation, you don't need to watch it if you saw the movie. 100%.
All right, good.
You do not need to watch it. I don't think they added any scenes, as far as I could tell, or like they added. I mean, you could watch the first episode of the Mugen Train because it is sort of like a prologue to the movie, but it's not necessary. It just fleshes out Rengoku's character a little bit more, but you already know Rengoku's character if you watch the movie, so not necessary. But if you want to watch the first episode of the Mugen Train sort of TV series, you can do that. But for the first episode of the Entertainment District arc, they said it was going to be an hour long. I think it was around like 40 minutes actually, which is fine. And it's good. I mean, like, I read this part of the manga over a year ago, and the fact that I am able to see this all animated is great. You know, I obviously don't remember everything that happens point by point, but I know how arcs end, and I know, or should I say, I know how arcs begin and the sort of middle parts and sort of, you know, certain moments and certain pieces, and then how they end. I don't know every single detail. So, you know, seeing this first episode was super duper fun. I cannot wait to continue watching this show on a week-to-week basis, because now I know everyone's going to be watching Demon Slayer again, now the fact that it is all new content. So, to them anyways, you know, as me, a manga reader, you know, I already know what's going to happen.
A manga reader, yeah. Right.
But, you know, to these anime-only watchers, you know, it's all new content to them. So, you know, seeing them react on Twitter and seeing them have a blast is going to be fun for me as well. So, Toilet Bound Hanako-kun.
What is this?
Yeah, honestly, I had no idea what the fuck I was getting myself into when I bought this at my local comic shop. All I know is that this was a good manga to check out. So There's a lot of different categories that this falls under, or should I say genres. It's like a action, comedy, drama, mystery. It plays a lot into sort of Japanese like folklore, and the folklore for this one is about like this ghost named Hanako-kun. He like dwells within like the girl's like third stall bathroom or some shit, and like some stuff happens, and you know, it's funny, it's goofy, it's wacky, it's a little all over the place for me personally. I didn't know that this actually had a anime adaptation, so maybe I should have just watched that. But I decided to buy the first volume of the manga because I was at the comic book shop and I was like, screw it, why not? And it was all right. I think that maybe I need to give it a volume or two more to sort of really see how I feel about this series. It's not terrible, but it's not like super up my alley either. I said the same thing about Komi Can't Communicate, but I've obviously fallen in love with that series, so who knows, the same could happen here. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not really falling in love with these characters or anything like that. There's definitely cool and cute moments, but I'm not like super duper into it. Your Name, another side Earthbound. So I don't know how long I've been reading this book because it is a light novel. This isn't, or there is a manga adaptation of it, but I decided to read the light novel version because this was my first ever light novel, and I sort of wanted to go and give that medium a try. So pretty much this light novel is about pretty much every single character within Your Name and sort of fleshing out their story. So I literally started reading this in June of this year, like towards the end of June, and I recently just finished it. So I've obviously been taking my time reading this because it is definitely a lot wordier than a normal manga, because there are no pictures and there's a lot of sort of describing things and describing scenes because I can't see what's going on, you know? But it was definitely fun getting to know a lot of the characters within Your Name outside of the movie and seeing their backstories and seeing their day-to-day normal life, and you know, outside of just Taki and Mizuhara, you know, you literally get to see most of the side characters, including Mizuhara's sister and her father, sort of see, you know, their perspective on things, whether it's during the movie or actually before the movie even happens in the case of her father. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely a fun read. I definitely enjoyed reading it, but it was definitely a little all over the place, a little slow. Maybe that's just because it's a light novel and that's just how it is. But you know, it's definitely not a necessary read to anyone that, you know, watched Your Name. Like if you just want to see the other side characters and sort of see where they come from and what else they do within the world of Your Name, I guess, you know, you can read this and have a good time with it. It's not something that I would 100% recommend, but only if you're like super duper into Your Name like I am. I'm definitely going to give the manga a try and see how different that is, because it's only 2 volumes long for the manga, which I'm sure that they're going to skip some stories and some characters maybe. I'm not entirely sure, but that's just my guess. But yeah, Your Name, another side Earthbound. Definitely recommend it if you're a diehard Your Name fan, if you haven't read it already. Horimiya manga, I started reading that. It's definitely a lot slower than the anime because the anime is only 12 episodes long, so they sort of rush things a bit, but you know, there's a lot of situations that weren't within the anime. I'm only 2 volumes in, so I can already tell certain differences. But yeah, you know, it's still fun to see Hori-san and Miyamura, you know, do couple stuff, but like they're actually not a couple yet. I'm more than 2 volumes in and they haven't been a fucking couple yet, but within the anime it's within like the first couple of episodes, which is good because you know, they really do get that ball rolling within the anime, but the manga, they're taking their time a bit. Spy Family, I finally am able to read more volumes because they finally shipped volumes 2 and 3 to me from fucking Right Stuff, because that show was on back order for like ever. It's still the same cutesy sort of action spy thriller comedy, if you will. Like this is such a weird manga to really talk about because it's a shonen manga, but it's not like a typical action shonen manga because there are a lot more comedy elements to it, and that's good. I definitely like seeing that more within shonen in particular. So seeing that within this series is super duper fun. I cannot wait to see how this series gets adapted into the anime, because I think that this show can really do well if enough people watch it, obviously, and I'm sure that the anime adaptation will bring more eyes to it. But yeah, Spy Family, if you haven't read it yet, you could wait for the anime adaptation and hopefully that's good, but definitely the manga is super duper fun.
All right, so now it's my turn. So SMT5, I finished that game. So luckily with Endwalker getting delayed by the 2 weeks, I was able to like actually play and finish SMT5. I wasn't sure I was going to do it, but I was able to like barely before Endwalker came out, and I'm really glad I did. Because the game is very good. I mean, I basically explained everything in the last podcast, and there really isn't much more to say about it. Because, I still think the story is the weakest part of the game, and it is true. Like, I really can't say anything about the story because it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But gameplay-wise, it's just so good. I do think it's, like, some of my favorite turn-based combat I have played. And it really, because, I was playing Pokemon on the side with this as well. And playing this and going back to Pokemon, I'm like, man, Pokemon's combat kind of sucks, huh? Like, with SMT is just like, it's basically that same fundamental thing where you have different demons or Pokemon or whatever on your team, and you have the same elemental weaknesses and do more damage, but just the amount of depth and customization you have in SMT over Pokemon is like insane. Like, you could just do so much stuff in one turn. Like, there's so much to think about even before you go into a fight. Like, there's just so much thinking, and the combat itself is just fun. The animations are amazing. Like, it's just insane that Atlas being such a smaller company than like the Pokemon company or Game Freak, like, and they could just do more with their games. It just blows me away every single time. I'm like, how? But yeah, SMT5 is amazing. If you liked Persona, I definitely say give it a try. Obviously, it's very different. Like, combat wise, it's sort of similar, but it's going to take a lot of learning to like get used to how it works. And, story wise is definitely not as story focused as Persona is. So just if you like the gameplay of Persona, I definitely say give it a try. If you didn't like, if you weren't like that big of a fan of the gameplay in Persona, then yeah, I'd probably stay away from it. But it's definitely one of the better RPGs on the Switch, and I highly recommend it. It's just a really good time. I highly enjoyed it. And now here's the big thing. So Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. So I'm almost done. I'm literally up to the final dungeon and final boss. I didn't want to do it. I was going to do it yesterday, but then Game Awards happened. I was still playing it when it was happening. So I'm addicted like by a lot. So I have, but next podcast, I'm definitely going to have my full thoughts on this. But I could already just give most of my thoughts now. First is the sort of like the queue situation. So I'm lucky enough that I could just play in the morning, and so the queue times never bother me because there's no queues in the morning, so I don't really care. And I just never log out. If I have to log out, I just scum it. Like, I press W if I'm doing something else, like, so I don't get kicked out by the AFK thing. But if you work a 9 to 5, which I never do, I don't work mornings. But if you do work mornings and you come back at 5, you're fucked. Like, you're not getting in. Like, the queue times have been absolutely ridiculous with the amount of hype this expansion has been getting, and how many WoW refugees have been coming to this game, and just all the good press about Final Fantasy in the last like year has really shown. Like, the servers can barely take it. The dev team already is like expanding the server space and trying to fix it, but yeah, it's definitely going to be a little shitty to get into this game for a while. Like, I'll say if you want to play this game, I'll say just wait a month or two until the hype dies down a bit, because yeah, it's kind of not a good experience if you can't like play in the mornings, because you just won't be able to get in. But I have been, and the game is just fantastic, man. Like, it's basically how Infinity War and Endgame sort of feel to a Marvel fan. I've been playing this game since like 2013 at this point, and seeing like a lot of the plot points in the previous expansions, a lot of the characters from the previous expansions, like even like all just the minor things I didn't think would make cameos, like just some of the minor raid quests or class quests or whatever, like things that I didn't think would really matter just show up just to like, it's just so good. It's basically the same reaction I had at Endgame and Infinity War when you see all these little things that shouldn't matter but still make you very happy to see them there to begin with. I definitely think the pacing is a little off in the beginning. Like, it's definitely a slow start in the beginning since it has to sort of wrap up the things that happened at the end of Shadowbringers. But once it gets going, man. Like, it's very good. Again, I can't really say much without spoiling it, and I'm gonna have my full thoughts when I actually finish it. But man, it's been great. Like, some of the answers we finally get for some things that have been just hinted at for years, or some things from Shadowbringers that just makes that expansion even better than it was. It's really good. And just gameplay wise, I think the dungeons have been fantastic. Like, obviously all the dungeons kind of just walk in a straight line, like find a bunch of mobs and bosses. But like the visual, like just like it just looks so beautiful. Like, some of the dungeons look really like great. The new zones are also very beautiful to look at. Like, they've definitely, like, I heard this game kind of runs like shit now on the base PS4 because it seems to be really pushing the consoles now, which is nice. They probably are going to phase out base PS4 compatibility at some point, because they also did that when the game was on PS3 and they kind of phased that out during Stormblood. So it's probably going to do that at some point, because it looks like the game is going to keep getting more graphically intensive, which is always nice to see, because I don't like it when they're held back too much from older hardware and is just rather just abandon it. Like, I'm sorry for people that don't have like a PS4 Pro or PS5, but I kind of want the games to look better on my PC. But yeah, and the new class, Reaper and Sage. I haven't played Sage because I'm not really a healer, but Reaper is a ton of fun too. I don't really play melee DPS, but it's a really fun class, really edgy. You have like your whole sort of like demon trigger mode where you could like have your sort of like ghost guy that's with you. You can like fuse with him and do a bunch of crazy shit. It's a lot of fun. Again, I'm more of a caster guy, so I don't really play melee DPS, but it's been a lot of fun as well. Yeah, I'll give my more thoughts about it when I actually finish the game, so I could like get everything written down so I can say everything I want to say. But yeah, right now I think it's fantastic. I think I'm gonna say how the ending is. I still think Shadowbringers is a little better just because I think it's paced better and it's more focused. This expansion is definitely focusing on a lot of different things, and some parts do feel a little pace breaking. Especially there's also another bit in the towards the end of the game where I felt like they could have put that towards the beginning, because it you have like a lot of urgency and then you just take a break for like 2 hours, then you keep going. It just feels weird. But for the most part, it's been fantastic. It's such a good ending, and it's going to be good to just beat the final boss and just finally see how all this ends and what they're going to set up for the next like sort of arc for this whole game. So yeah, definitely a great ending so far, and I love it.
All right, so now let's talk about the Game Awards. But first, we got to call out Geoff Keighley. Before the Game Awards even started, there was press and sort of news articles coming out that the fact that Geoff Keighley wasn't taking a side for this, and during the Game Awards he didn't outright call out Activision, but he was being supportive on the side of against sexual harassment and assaults and all of this other stuff, which is obviously the good side, and something that he should have said maybe before this, or maybe actually called out Activision, because I know that he still wants to deal with them like as a company and shit like that, and he can't just outright call them out like in a sense, but he called out Konami when Kojima was, in that rut, right? I think. Yeah. Like, there's definitely, something going on here where, like, he doesn't want to exactly say. And I'm sure it also has to deal with the fact that I think someone at Activision, like, funds the Game Awards or is part owner of the Game Awards, something like that. I forget exactly what it was. Please do not quote me on that. Don't take me out of context. Please do some more research, unlike me. But there's definitely something going on there where Geoff Keighley just couldn't just outright call them out, which is a little concerning. And I think that was something that I had in mind when I went into this, because honestly, like, if I didn't do this show, I wouldn't have watched the Game Awards and would have just watched the trailers afterwards, because that would have saved me like 3 hours, because that show was fucking long for like no reason. Yeah. But yeah, I think that it is definitely, in my opinion, just like not okay to just not call out Activision Blizzard, because he did it in the past with Konami, so why can't he do it now?
Yeah, I also thought that was weird. Like, if you're gonna like call it out, you might as well just say why you're calling it out. Like, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo did it, so like, why can't you? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And like,
it just seems weird.
yeah. And like, there's obviously like, oh, but he's like implying it and shit like that. But like, when you actually like put the words like in your mouth, like, fuck these guys, fuck these, fuck this company, like, they did some bad shit and that's why we're calling them out, like that's obviously a lot more impactful and a lot more powerful than you sort of like dancing around the subject, being like, yeah, we condemn this behavior, but not from this company because we can't say their name for whatever reason or whatever the case is. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents on it, because that definitely affected me going into this show, which we'll talk about in a bit. But
yeah, it just like, yeah, I don't know why he just didn't say it at this point. If you're gonna address it, you might just just say why we're addressing it. Like, things aren't gonna get better if you don't just like point out the people that are like doing these things. You know what I mean? Like, Activision was like really shitty and still is, so you might as well just say it. So I don't know.
Yeah. All right, so the actual award show itself, I mean, I just said it was fucking long. I think that was like my thing, which like, yeah, maybe it's just because I'm getting old or some shit, but like, I swear to God, it wasn't 3 hours long last year, or maybe I'm wrong. I'm not entirely sure.
They're usually very long. I mean, honestly, I think the Game Awards usually have some of my favorite announcements, the ones that make me scream the most. Like, Psychonauts 2 got revealed, and like, I forgot what Game Awards it was, but it got revealed here. It's Joker and got revealed during the Game Awards. Sephiroth got revealed in Smash. So like, usually it has some pretty hype stuff, but this year was a little more quiet. Like I think like a lot of things we've already seen coming, or you just didn't really show a lot. Like it was just like CG trailers. So like it wasn't like as hyped this year. And I think the game, like the winners were mostly deserved. There are some games that got robbed, Psychonauts 2 and Ratchet didn't win fucking shit. That makes me very angry. But we get up to that when we get up to that.
I mean, we could talk about
Okay.
the awards right now. Yeah. So like in my opinion, like this year was the most surprises for awards. Like first up, Game of the Year, It Takes Two. Out
That's
of
good.
all of the games there, I did not expect that one, honestly. I think that a lot of people were like, yo, it's going to be Metroid Dread or, Psychonauts 2 or some shit, Like, I think a lot of people were hinging on Metroid Dread, but the fact that It Takes Two or even Deathloop, but It Takes Two taking it home, the fact that that is a game that I actually did play this year is pretty cool to see. And I think that the game itself, it's fucking good. I mean, the fact that it's a 2-player platformer experience about the story of a divorcee couple and they're sort of trying to get through their relationship troubles through this sort of like magical spell that they got under and shit like that, like, and the fact that the game was fun and it did so many gameplay styles and it did it really, really well. It was a cohesive story, a cohesive experience that is worth to play with a significant other or a best friend or whatever the case is. It's definitely a game that I think is worthy of Game of the Year. It just has with all of these games in the category, but the fact that this one takes it home, I think that is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mostly like I'm not saying Deathloop is bad at all, but it definitely felt like the safe pick. So I was definitely like Deathloop was winning things I didn't think it would win. I was like, okay, please don't let it win Game of the Year because I think the other games deserve it. And I am happy It Takes Two won. Like I'm really okay with that because I thought the game was fantastic. Obviously we played it together. I thought it was great. Joseph Ferris is always a fucking crazy guy whenever he gets up there. Like it's fun to see his beginnings. Like he announced A Way Out on the Game Awards. And now him actually taking a Game of the Year reward from Geoff Keighley. I think that's really neat that he was able to win this year. Obviously, Metroid Dread, fantastic game as well. Psychonauts 2, so goddamn good. Like, I'm just going to keep saying this. I'm very sad Psychonauts 2 didn't win anything at all. That makes me very depressed because I think that game is fantastic. And I think if you're a fan of platformers or like just a good narrative, like I think Psychonauts 2 it's so goddamn good. And obviously Ratchet, I'm a fanboy, so I'm going to love it in general. But yeah, I would have been okay with most of these games winning. I just didn't want Deathloop to win. It just felt too safe to me. But yeah, I was really happy that It Takes Two won, to be honest.
Yeah, and the fact that Psychonauts 2, like obviously I haven't played it, but I know a lot of people after the award show was like Psychonauts 2 was robbed. I was like, they probably were because I think that that game probably had a lot of love and a lot of care put into it, just as with all of these other games. But with this one in particular, I know that the guy that was there to represent Psychonauts 2, he was like dripped out and shit. My man had the
Tim Schafer was all dripped out with. It was ready to get up there. I was like, no, Tim Schafer, he was to get up there.
My man was ready. He was ready to boast about his game, and rightfully so. But unfortunately, it just wasn't the year. So, but other categories you want to discuss or talk about here?
Yeah, I guess the bigger one, like best game direction, I always have kind of beef with because I worry for outstanding creation, vision, and innovation in game direction and design. Like It Takes Two and Psychonauts 2 definitely should have been the two winners here. Like It Takes Two, again, having like this co-op like platformer hodgepodge of stuff, and like I think that's just such a good like innovative in like game design and like just how the game was designed for all that. Same thing with Psychonauts 2. Like Psychonauts 2, even like if the controls aren't the best for a platformer, I think it's level design and just vision of like each level and like the story that goes into it is like that's literally the definition of this. So like these two games not winning, that is a little disappointing. I'm not gonna lie. Like that was the one that I was a little upset about, that Deathloop won. But yeah, and another one, I am actually happy with best narrative that Guardians of the Galaxy won. Because I really like the story in that game. Like that game really took me by surprise at how good it is, and I'm happy it did win something. Because I really didn't want to get overlooked since it kind of came out later in the year and there was kind of like a lot of negativity before it came out. But once it actually came out and people started playing it, like, oh, this is like a good single player superhero game. And, I think that really went a long way with it. And I'm really happy it won Best Narrative because I do think it deserved it. I think, Life is Strange and Psychonauts 2 also kind of deserved that reward too. But I was really happy that Guardians won it as well.
Yeah. And I guess some other categories.
I guess art direction as well. There's a lot. Like why did Deathloop win this one too? Like this one, I think probably should have went to either Kana or Ratchet just because of how like insane they looked. Like they actually look like Pixar like things. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like the amount of detail and like expression that all these characters have was like insane, and just to have like Deathloop win that one was also a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you didn't play Deathloop either, right?
I didn't play it. No,
Okay.
I don't hate it. Just to make it clear, I don't hate Deathloop. It's just like I just feel like other games probably did a bit better this year.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Deathloop, when it comes to winning best game direction, you know, it's a game where you sort of go back in time and you just do this trial and error thing where you go through the same scenario over and over again, right?
Yeah, it's like yeah, my brother played it and he basically said like like the time loop doesn't really play that much of a factor to it. You kind of just like do the thing again. Like it's not like there's other games with time loops. Like obviously Majora's Mask and Outer Wilds, I think that game was called. Like they do like their time loops a bit more interesting than Deathloop did. Because Deathloop kind of just feels more linear. At least that's what my brother told me. He still liked it a lot, but yeah, it wasn't as insane as something like Majora's Mask that did it like in like 2000. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and art direction definitely. That game isn't something that I would, you know, hang up on my wall, if you will. Maybe just because I'm a lot more fond of these cartoony looking characters like Ratchet and Clank, Psychonauts 2,
Yeah, I don't mind like, you know, realistic games winning it. It just, you know, like when Last of Us 2 won, I think best art direction. Oh no, I think Ghost of Tsushima won that one last year. I can't remember, but you know, I'm okay with like those games kind of winning because they look fantastic, right? Like Last of Us 2 looks like it's like goddamn photorealistic, but like Deathloop also has style, but I think like Kana and like especially Ratchet like just looks insane. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, as the resident Ratchet and Clank fanboys,
Look,
you know, like
I'm very sad I didn't win anything either, but I know Ratchet will be fine. So
yeah, that was definitely a safe pick, but it unfortunately didn't win. I think
I am happy Nier won for best music, by the way, because that's a game I'll talk about more in the next podcast. But yeah, Nier Replicant, like the music in Nier is always just so good, and I'm happy it won that as well.
I was definitely memeing that he didn't say the full version 1.2. I was like, what's up, Geoff? You running out of time? What's up? Like, he's probably like, fuck, we're behind schedule or whatever. Anyways, best performance, the actress from Resident Evil. I think that this was I think that this was her big breakout role, and you know, the fact that she won over these other people. I mean, obviously, two of them are from Deathloop, and you know, as a game that I haven't played, and I have no idea what sort of entailed for those performances. I know that Erica Mori within Life is Strange: True Colors, she was good, but I'm not sure if she would have been better than these other people. I'm not entirely sure. Like I said, that is literally the only performance that I can recognize here from what I play personally. But you know, I think that some people were bringing up the fact that, you know, she won because of the memes, which could be true, honestly.
I mean, she did a good job, but yeah, I don't have anything opposed to that. I think Life is Strange and Erica Mori did a good job as well. Like I did like her voice acting a lot in True Colors. You know, I think she was like, you know, especially because I didn't really like not like I didn't like, but what's his face? I forgot his name from 2. He didn't leave that much of an impression on me. Like, yeah, Sean. He didn't leave as much of an impression as me as Max did. So like, I'm happy that Alex was able to leave more of an impression on me. So I kind of attribute that to her performance because I think she did a good job as well.
But it did win Games for Impact, which I think was kind of a no-brainer. I think, in my opinion.
Oh, best ongoing game, boy! Final Fantasy 14 won. Hell yeah, let's go. Dude, all the Fortnite kids were so mad. I'm like, yeah, eat shit. Hell yeah.
I mean, just from what I've been told by our friend Cam, they told me that like the amount of love and care the developers put into this game is like actually insane. So the fact that it did win best ongoing game is 100% warranted. I think that no studio and no game developer really puts in as much love and care into their game as much as Final Fantasy 14. But just that's just from what they told me about the game and the development.
Yeah, I can tell you, they definitely care a lot about the community. They definitely listen to a lot of things people complain about, or we like just tell them, and they usually fix it in the next patch or whatever. Like they're very like connected to the community, which is great to see. Like we don't see that with a lot of these games as a service games. It's more like a faceless company or just like one dude. And like 14 also has the one dude being Yoshi P, like the main producer, but like he, you know, brings in a lot of the other developers or some of the other people, like Soken, which is like the main composer, also talks a lot. The main translator also talks a lot about how like the game is going and stuff. So yeah, they definitely have like a lot of open communication with the community, which I think is very important for like an MMO or any live service game in general. And, you know, it really shows because, you know, a lot of people are coming to 14 and like, wow, this is a great community. And it's like why I play the game so much, because not everyone's like a toxic asshole like in every other online game nowadays. So it's just very refreshing. And I'm really happy I won this.
Yeah, it also won Best Community Support, which I am not surprised by that, because people that love this game, that love playing the game, you know, the developers actually also play the game as well, which is awesome to see. And they love making the game, they love fixing the game. Like everything about this game is just love. Like that's all I hear from it. And it's great to see, because, you know, I know that these other ongoing games, not to say that some of the developers don't love what they're doing for these games necessarily, but definitely it cannot be matched by Final Fantasy XIV, just from what I've been told and from what you can sort of co-sign, if you will.
Yeah, again, might be a bit biased, but that's just how it is.
Kenya, Bridge of Spirits, the fact that they won Best Indie Game and Best Debut Indie Game kind of reminds me of Cuphead in a way. Not to the scale of Cuphead, because Cuphead had the Microsoft support, the Microsoft bag. It's just at this time it had the PlayStation console exclusivity sort of bag, and I think maybe some from Epic, because I think that game on PC is only playable through the Epic Game Store. So yeah, I mean, there's no really, I'm not trying to take this award away from them necessarily, but, you know, Bridge of Spirits definitely had a lot more support behind it, behind closed doors sort of thing, compared to these other games, which, you know, that will show within the game itself, because I haven't played it yet, unfortunately. I bought this game when it came out like the first week, but I still haven't fucking played it. God damn it. But
me too. I need to finish it as well.
Yeah, you know, it's a platformer that I'm sure that I will love when I eventually get around to it, hopefully within the upcoming weeks or sometime next year. So, but yeah, Kenya, Bridge of Spirits, I'm glad that it actually did win some awards within the indie game category.
Best mobile game, Genshin. Yeah, just not really. I guess best action game being Returnal. I agree with that. Returnal is a fantastic game, and, you know, the game is just a pure action roguelite. So I'm really happy that it just won that, because, you know, the game is just bullet hell shoot, and I think what it does really well. You know, I think the game would benefit from sort of fleshing out its more roguelite systems, which I think I said when the game first came out. Because, you know, once I beat the game, I didn't really feel too much desire to go back and do another run, because I just felt there wasn't much there. It's not like Isaac or Enter the Gungeon or Hades, where there's a bunch of different unlockables and ways to play the game each run. Like, always feels different. Returnal definitely felt a bit samey after you go back and do a same run again, which I think is like its major downfall. I think they're supposed to be doing DLC or something with the game. And if they could add more weapons and new items, I think that's all it really needs, is just more variations in their runs to make it more of a fun roguelike. But as just like a straight up action bullet hell game, I think it's fantastic. And I definitely think it's probably better than the other games here in terms of just pure like action, since that's all our focus is on, you know?
Mm-hmm. Action adventure going to Metroid Dread. I think that was surprising in a way, because I think that compared to the other games in this category, it is kind of stacked, in my opinion. I think that all of these games do action adventure pretty well, whether from my own experience or from what I've seen. My own experience being Ratchet and Clank, and then the others I've seen on streams and other stuff, but and also Metroid Dread to some extent. But, you know, Nintendo actually taking home a award is actually kind of nice. They didn't even win Best Family Game. That actually went to It Takes Two.
They didn't win their own reward.
So, you know, their own freebie they didn't get, but they actually did win Best Action Adventure, which is surprising for them. And I think that is definitely warranted, especially because Metroid Dread, Steam Mercury, Nintendo, you know, they all worked super hard to bring this game to life. And it definitely shows within the final product, as I think a lot of people would say that Metroid Dread is their game of the year because of how good it is, actually. So, you know, it is awesome to see that they actually won Best Action Adventure.
And there's literally no issue with that. Like, Metroid is like one of the original action adventure games. So yeah, I really have no issue with Dread winning this one. For Best RPG, you know, I played most of these, but yeah, I heard like a lot of good things about Tales of Arise. I just haven't had the time to like really play it yet. Hopefully I could change that next year. I could find some time for it. But yeah, I'm happy it won, because, you know, the Tales series has always been sort of like a lesser like JRPG series. Like, it's always been overshadowed by the bigger boys. So I'm happy that it's finally had like a huge breakout game with Tales of Arise. And, you know, I'm really happy for it, because I heard nothing but good things about this game. And I'm really down to play it, because it looks anime as hell. And, you know, I love my JRPGs. So Definitely gonna check it out after it winning this. I'm like, yeah, I'll probably check it out now.
Is there any other awards you want to talk about before we get to the announcements?
Let's see. Content creator of the year, Dream One. Not much to say. Just
honestly,
interesting.
all I knew was Fuslie, but that's about it. And like I don't even watch her that much either, so I had no idea who the other people were.
Yeah, that's about it. Those are most of the major categories.
All right, so let's talk about the announcements. So first, Sonic the Hedgehog. We knew there were going to be some Sonic announcements because they were talking about it before the show. So let's first talk about the better one of the two, the Sonic 2 movie trailer. So we finally get to see the characters in action in this new Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and it looks awesome. Sonic looks as good as ever. I'm glad that they, actually listened to the fans online and actually redesigned him for the final movie within the first one, and they're obviously keeping with that design going into this one. Seeing Tails, great. The fact that they actually picked a voice actor for Tails from the Sonic Boom series, I believe, so that's pretty cool. Idris Elba as Knuckles, he said that his Knuckles wasn't going to be sexy, but that was a fucking lie. Yep, yeah. that was a fucking lie because he sounded real good as Knuckles, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, Eggman's back. He's doing his shit again, and there's
Jim
obviously
Carrey.
Yep, Jim Carrey's back, and there's obviously going to be some stuff with, I guess, Sonic causing too much destruction, trying to be Batman or some shit for the town or whatever. So it looks like it's keeping the same energy from the first movie, which is great. It's awesome, and yeah, I just can't wait to see when this movie actually comes out early next year. So.
Yeah, what an origin story for this movie. To everyone was hating it because Sonic looked ugly, and now we have a second movie and everyone loves it. It's pretty crazy to see. Just the turnaround this movie, I guess, franchise has had, and it being super faithful to the source material now is really cool. Knuckles being sort of a bad guy fighting Sonic at first. I don't know if that's supposed to be a Master Emerald or a Chaos Emerald because that thing is kind of big. I think that's a Chaos Emerald, but
yeah, I think it's a Chaos Emerald.
Yeah, you have the tornado with Sonic and Tails riding on it. Just all of it just looks like a bunch of care was put into the just the source material. Jim Carrey looking like Eggman for real now because he's bald. So. Yeah, I just think it's going to be a really fun movie. I think all the models look great. Knuckles looks really good. I really like how Tails looks. I like how they kept his voice because I guess it didn't feel like finding another voice, a high profile person to play as Tails. But yeah, it just looks great. I actually did enjoy the Sonic movie, the first Sonic movie, which I didn't think I would. I was going into it ready to hate it because I was going to be dumb. But it was enjoyable. It was a good time. It looks like this movie is also just going to be a really fun time,
Yeah, and it could be the Master Emerald. I'm not entirely sure because there is a quick scene within the trailer. We do see Angel Island, and there's a green beam. So it could be the Master Emerald. Who knows? It's definitely a little too small for our liking as Sonic fans, but whatever they decide to pick it, because rings do things differently where they're teleportation things and shit like that. So obviously they're messing with the source material a little bit, which I don't mind, obviously, because every single adaptation is going to be a little different. But yeah, I just cannot wait to see this movie in theaters again and just have fun, just like I did with the first movie.
Yeah, I wonder if they actually are gonna lead up to a bigger thing. I don't know if at the end of this they're gonna leak or just not leak, but show something at the end, here's chaos or something. That'd be fucking weird. But yeah, I'm ready to see what they do with this series at this point, because I'm really enjoying it a lot more than I thought it would. This Sonic movie series. So yeah.
And because we're such big Sonic fans, we know that there's a billion different stories that they could pull from. There's still Shadow, like you said, Chaos. There's other characters that they could bring in. Amy Rose, they still haven't introduced yet. So yeah, there's definitely a lot that this sort of movie series, if they want to continue it past these two, there's definitely a lot that they could do, go in different directions. They could introduce Metal Sonic and introduce Amy Rose, etc. And maybe different futures if they want to mess with that for kids and maybe confuse them in a way. But
yeah, just have a Sonic Spider-Verse. Haven't made his other selves.
Who knows? But next we got is Sonic Frontiers. So everyone thought that this was going to be titled Sonic Rangers or whatever the case was. But now it is officially Sonic Frontiers or Sonic of the Breath of the Wild or whatever
Sonic
the fuck.
of the Wild. Yeah. So it's actually shamelessly Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that this is going to be a open world Sonic the Hedgehog game is going to be kind of weird because, open world games have been around for so long, and I think Sonic has yet to tackle that genre to this extent. So that's going to be pretty cool to see. I wonder on how the game's actually going to function, like actual gameplay. It looks like that there might be Shadow of the Colossus like boss fights, which could be kind of cool. Apparently Ian Flynn, the comic book writer, yes, for the Sonic the Hedgehog comics, he's been writing those comics for so many years, from the Archie days up until the early days for the IDW series. He is now writing this game, which can be good, honestly. I do have some critiques on his writing for the comics, but that's just because, those comics are made for kids, and Sonic the Hedgehog is a IP made for kids, and, there are certain things that he can't do with these characters, etc., etc. So, yeah, I'm sure that eventually, if he does get another chance to do another Sonic game, he'll do a much darker story, and I'm sure that this one's going to be a little more on the lighthearted side, because I think it's just Sonic trying to stop Eggman, and there's these weird sort of things happening on this island with, like, technology and maybe ruins and other mystical things going on, so
yeah, I'm just curious what the gameplay is going to be like, because we didn't see any. Like, this was more just showing the general vibe is like Breath of the Wild, like just Breath of the Wild. And I wonder if they're going to like keep a more like Sonic Adventure moveset for Sonic in this game. Like, I don't know if they're going to make him have the boost, because I feel like you can't really do that in an open world, but you kind of have to explore a little more methodically and stuff. Like, I think they're going to definitely keep a more Sonic Adventure moveset, which would be great. Like, if we're actually like, this is like a pseudo Sonic Adventure like 3, that would be pretty sick. Again, I'm not too sure. I don't know what the gameplay here is going to be, because we didn't get like any information on that. But I'm always going to be hesitant, because like open world games are like really hard to do, and it's Sonic, and Sonic has not had a good track record in the last few years. Sonic Lost World and Sonic Forces were both pretty big misses in terms of like just quality. Sonic Mania was good, but that was made by someone else, not Sonic Team. So like there hasn't been a good 3D Sonic game since like Generations, really. Yeah. So it's gonna be even the Sonic Colors Ultimate was kind of a mess. So like it's kind of like this game has a lot riding on it to like kind of have a good comeback for Sonic, and it really shows that people really like care. Like it's number 9 on trending, and like it's getting a lot of views. Like, so yeah, people obviously want a new Sonic game and for it to be different. So hopefully they do move away from the boost formula, and this could be like a new just gameplay thing for Sonic in general. But we're gonna have to see, because I don't really know what to like think about it yet. Besides, I'm kind of nervous to see how it's going to be able to pull off an open world Sonic game, because Sonic and open world is not really what I think of like, together. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you were on Discord last night when I was talking to Louis. I mean, there hasn't been a good Sonic game since Sonic Generations by Sonic Team. Sonic Lost World, a miss, just because they were going in such a different direction. And then Sonic Forces, they were advertising like this much darker story, but like they brought in like this new team of people on Sonic Team, and like they had no idea what they were doing. And I believe that director for Sonic Forces is actually working on this game, but I hope that he learned from his past projects, and maybe he steers it in a better direction. Who knows, obviously, because we don't even know what the gameplay is going to look like. But Sonic Forces, all I hope is that it's not bad, and that's going to be super hard to do, especially because they are tackling the open world genre, and this is the first time Sonic is going in this direction. So I hope it's at least okay, because Sonic Forces definitely left a huge bad taste in my mouth. I really dislike Sonic Forces just because of the story just being so goddamn bad, because they were just
this is war, Sonic.
Yeah,
not just saying that to you.
Yeah, like it's war, and like they just didn't go all the way in for that sort of story aspect, like I wish we could have seen like Eggman actually take over the world instead of like have like this huge time jump, and then like classic Sonic was in there for some reason, and then you have this own fucking creator character that was honestly super bad, and I hated playing as that character, and you play as him as at least within 1/3 of the levels at least. And yeah, so the fact that this game is literally just Sonic, and it's going to be a open world game, I hope it does well, and hopefully there's no other playable characters, and he's just trying to save his friends from whatever the hell Dr. Eggman did. And I could hope that the story's going to be good, because Ian Flynn's writing it, so I think that definitely looks promising, but outside of that, everything else is definitely a mystery, so...
Yeah, we definitely have we always say this, but we are actually going to have to see what the gameplay is going to be like. Because again, open world games are hard to do, and I don't have a lot of trust in Sonic Team like at all. So
yeah,
we're just gonna have to see how the gameplay is. That's gonna be like the first big like test. Also, I'm really worried how this is gonna run on like past gen consoles, because it already seems like just by them panning the camera to show the view, like it was already like stuttering, bro. So performance wise, I really don't know how it's gonna do, especially on Switch. Like that has to be a cloud version. Like there's no way that's gonna actually run on Switch.
That's either a cloud version or they're gonna do a completely different version, like what they did with like Sonic Unleashed on like the Wii and PS2.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't seen that since the PS3 days. So like I don't know if they're gonna do that,
because that's a lot of money, you know.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to make a whole thing.
Making a completely different game, but you know, like you said, we're just gonna have to wait and see.
All right, so yeah, we got some other announcements. You know,
literally, I actually just like pick whichever ones and I'll bounce off you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do like some of these quickly. Yeah, Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. This is the new expansion to Monster Hunter Rise. So usually they like release an expansion like a year or something later that adds this thing called G rank, which is like basically the end game, like really hard monsters that are like really hard. Monster Hunter World did it with Iceborne. Now this is doing with Sunbreak, and it's great. You know, I thought Monster Hunter Rise was very good. I love everything about it. I think it's going to be coming on PC as well, so it's probably going to come out at the same time as Sunbreak comes out, which is great. So like PC players could just have all the content available. I need to like gear up a little more, because I'm definitely am not ready for when this comes out, because when I played Iceborne, it was like a good year since I played Monster Hunter World, and I just got my ass kicked. So that was fun. But yeah, definitely looking forward to this. You know, just more Monster Hunter content. Persona 4 Arena Ultimax is coming on PC, so kind of weird that like they're not just doing a new one where Persona 5 characters. I guess that's just not on the money, I guess.
Yeah.
So they're just port it. This is a good fighting game though. Again, I'm not like a fighting game fanatic. Like I'm not good at them, but this was fun. I already played it on like PS3 when it came out like a while ago. And yeah, it's a fun game. You know, it's Persona. You like some of your personas and you still fight with your character and stuff. I think that Blaze Blue cross tag battle, there were some Persona characters that were ripped from this game, and yeah, they basically play exactly the same like that. So if you play that game, you kind of know what you're getting for, except it's just gonna be all Persona characters. So I think that's pretty neat. I guess all right. So the thing with the Star Wars Eclipse thing and the Wonder Woman thing is that there's not much to say, right? Like these were the two, like just like here's just CG trailers, and like there's not much to say besides who's making them. So Quantum Gene, you know, the people who made Heavy Rain, Detroit Become Human, are making the Star Wars Eclipse game. So I guess you could, if you think about Heavy Rain or Detroit Become Human, just think of that, but with Star Wars. There wasn't a lot really there to really say about it besides it's cool Star Wars thing. So I guess that's neat.
Yeah. I mean. Yeah. Just real quick, you know, like Quantic Dreams making a fucking Star Wars game, holy shit. Like that can be kind of fun. I'm going to be honest. You know?
Yeah.
Like the fact that with Detroit Become Human, they were so ambitious with creating like literally there's like a bajillion different like endings and different scenarios, and like from, you know, start to finish, no one's playthrough is the exact same. That is kind of cool. And I'm sure that they're thinking about doing that with this game. I feel like that they shouldn't. It should definitely be a little more linear, but they definitely should still keep that sort of like ambition of like doing like, oh, you know, like there's like a bajillion different options here, and there's going to be like 4 to 5 different endings. You know, I think that would still be a very cool thing to do with this Star Wars Eclipse game. It would be cool if they do like maybe like different sort of, because this is before Order 66, I believe, because we do see Yoda. So they could do like different like characters and different stories like what they did with Detroit, and maybe have those stories come together, or they could just do like one story with one character and make that sort of like the big thing. But you know, Quantic Dreams doing the Star Wars game, I think that is very exciting and definitely unexpected.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. We're gonna see. I think Quantic Dream games, like usually they're always like kind of mixed to me, because there's some like weird shit that always happens in them, and I kind of laugh at them. I always watch Northern Lion play them anyways. I'll probably just watch him play this one. But yeah, I'm going to be interested to see how that turns out. And next game that also is pretty cool is the Wonder Woman game. This is developed by the people who made the Middle-earth games, the Shadow War and the other one. I forgot what it was called. So it's going to have like a nemesis system, I think, just like those games did. So I don't know how that's going to like play into the game in general. But I'm always down for good single-player superhero games. I think that's a genre that really enough didn't have anything till now, so it's really cool to see them like really get it. Like Batman was kind of like the first to do it, and then we didn't have like any good ones until like Spider-Man. So kind of cool to see them like branch, you know, get more with Guardians and now this. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely excited to see what this Wonder Woman game has in store, especially the fact that it is the Middle of Earth sort of developers behind it. So it can be good, and I am eager to see what they actually come up with.
Also, just something I noticed I didn't have on the list is the Cuphead DLC. Because
yes.
I'm very excited for Cuphead DLC. I've been waiting like goddamn 4 years for that since they announced it. I love Cuphead. I thought it was a fantastic indie game. Just a good boss rush game, fantastic music, obviously fantastic art style, and it looks like they're gonna keep up with that with the DLC. It looks, I don't know how many bosses are in there in general, but it looks like a lot more than I thought it was gonna be. So definitely I'm very excited for that. It's been a long time coming, and it's finally coming out next year. I think like in summertime, I think it was. I can't remember. I think it was like August or June or something. So yeah, very excited for that. I love Cuphead, and I think if you're a fan of like those sort of hard, I guess like Mega Man type-esque sort of gameplay styles, then you'll probably enjoy that. And just for the art style alone, I think it's worth playing. It's really, really good. Also, Alan Wake 2. So yeah, my brother was like very excited for this because my brother is a huge Alan Wake fan. So like him seeing this is like, yes. So yeah, so Alan Wake like finally gained its sequel. I know it's been teased for a while because I think he was in Control and like one of the DLCs. So like it's kind of cool to see him finally get a full-fledged sequel and be like a full survival horror game now. I think that's really cool.
Yes.
It's just good to see Remedy get like a lot more love and support. Especially, I think Control really helped with that since it was so well received. So them now doing Alan Wake 2 is just a really cool thing to see,
Yeah, and the developer was like, I think it's time that we can actually deliver on this, and the fact that they were super committed on going the survival horror route is super cool because I think that they noticed that that genre is sort of coming back in a way because of Resident Evil, not the last one that just came out, the one before it, sort of seeing that genre of gaming sort of rise up again. They're like, okay, now I think it's time for us to bring our vision of Alan Wake 2 to life, because I'm sure that back then they wanted to bring that version of Alan Wake to life with these survival horror elements, but that genre was honestly kind of dead during that time. So now is definitely the time to bring it. So
yeah, I agree. Like I think survival horror has been coming back, and I think if they could do a good job with it, I think Alan Wake could serve that same need. You know what I mean? Everything else is kind of like that, but Suicide Squad. This actually, yes. Okay, I really hope this is good because it looks good. So, like especially graphically, like the game looks fantastic. Like this thing looks like it can melt my computer, so I'm like kind of scared to play on PC. But yeah, gameplay wise, it looks really fun. I was really skeptical because this is who's making this? Friggin' Rocksteady?
Yes, Rocksteady.
Yeah, so the people who made the Arkham games, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so yeah, they're making this game, and tonally is very different from what we've seen from them before. Because Suicide Squad is meant to be like wacky and stuff. And it looks like they're really capturing that energy here with like sort of like a 4-player, I guess, co-op game. So I that's the part that scares me. Obviously, like I hope it could do that well because because the game just looks fun. Like seeing all the different like King Shark looks really fun. Deadshot looks really cool. Like Harley has like a grappling hook. Like Captain Boomerangs like could teleport with his boomerangs. It looks really fun. So it kind of just depends on how well the multiplayer stuff fits into it.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure if this is a multiplayer game.
Is it not?
I'm not entirely sure. I have no idea. But if it is multiplayer, yeah, honestly, the fact that there's so much going on within this gameplay trailer. All of the characters looking like this is what Avengers should have been, where like every single character moves and flows differently, and they aren't restricted by the game engine. As we've seen with Avengers with Spider-Man. That character's not meant to be on the Avengers sort of engine, if you will.
Yeah.
But with this game, it looks like that they obviously knew what they were doing. They're like, all right, every single character needs to feel a certain way, and it looks like that they are nailing that because Rocksteady knows what they're doing with games. So yeah, and I am just as excited for you about this game because it looks like it can be a lot of fun. The fact that the shooting mechanics, it looks like most of the characters are going to have that in some way. So, and it looks like that, it's not that hard to do a third person over the shoulder sort of peeking, aiming and shooting sort of thing. So, but yeah, Suicide Squad, it looks like that it is shaping up to my expectations so far. So.
Yeah, I just love all the movement in it. Like I'm always a big thing with movement when it comes to things in games. Like, I don't really like being grounded a lot of the time. I like having games with like a lot of wacky movement options, and looks like this game has that. Like Deadshot looks really fun with his jetpack, and again, like Harley has a grappling hook. So yeah, hopefully like the gameplay and like just all the systems just work together because it looks like it could be a really good time. And yeah, Among Us VR. I was looking at it, like, is that Among Us? And I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, Kobe literally said the same thing. He said Among Us, and then he was like, wait, I was joking.
Yeah, it's Among Us VR. So yeah, like now you can get like stabbed in real life. So that's cool.
Yes, I actually start screaming in your house because someone actually is
I would
the
actually
imposter.
I would shit my pants.
I mean, literally, this is what I said when it was announced. Content creators are gonna get back on this. They're gonna buy Quest 2s right now. Like those are gonna be sold out very, very soon. And once Among Us VR comes out, that's gonna be the big sort of like streaming VR game, and people are gonna watch it because it's funny when you see someone in a VR headset get scared by a Among Us guy come behind you and kill you. You know, so yeah, that's gonna be fun. This Rumbleverse game, I just want to talk about real quick because it looks like it's like a sort of like beat 'em up fighting platform. I don't even know. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, was this like the Fortnite looking thing? Wait.
Yes, this is the okay. So enter a 40-person melee as you lay the smackdown to be declared champion in this brawler royale. So yeah. It is a beat 'em up battle royale. So I think that can be pretty cool. Just like with Fall Guys, you know, like that is the platformer battle royale. Other genres getting in on the battle royale sort of, you know, genre, obviously. I think that can be very, very cool. And I think that this game can serve that sort of beat 'em up, I guess, niche, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty interesting take on like a BR. Like, I think, you know, as we get later into like the battle royale, like battle royale being like a cemented game genre, it's cool to see other genres mix with it. So seeing like, I guess like more of a brawler, like sort of fighting game mix into it is pretty neat to see. Because you know, we've always seen shooters. Like shooters have been like the main thing for BR. So having like a more melee focused one seems pretty cool. Mm-hmm. You know, the trailer didn't do a lot for me. Like now watching the gameplay trailer looks a little bit better. I think they should have just shown this at the Game Awards. But like the CG trailer was just like it feels like a mobile game ad. Like I want to skip on it. But yeah, now that I'm seeing like the gameplay in action, it looks pretty fun. So yeah, it could be that same sort of wacky fun that Fall Guys is. You know what I mean?
But yeah, I think that's about it from the Game Awards from us. Is there anything else you need to say about it, or?
No, that's about it. Like usually, like these. You know, the Game Awards is usually very long, and I like, you know, I do like watching it just because, you know, sometimes there's something I really like. This year was a little bare for the announcements, but in terms of like the actual games I released this year, I think there was a lot of good. You know, a lot of people saying it was a weak year. I really don't agree with that because there's just like there's been so many really cool games that were out, and they weren't all like big AAA games, but. You know, I feel like the people that complain about there's no games out then complain AAA games suck. So like, what like, I don't really get what the thing is here. Like, you're getting a bunch of really niche, like, unique games this year, and then no one cares. So it really shows like why AAA games always like do well, and if they could like, you know, they could sort of be lazy about themselves because people will buy them anyway. So I don't know. I thought this year was fantastic. Like. In terms of game release, I basically played like almost everything this year, like that interested me, and that was a lot of things. So yeah, this year has been, I think, a great year for games, and you'll probably see that once we do our list next podcast for our game of the years. But yeah, overall it was an okay show. Like, you know, it wasn't like that exciting, and you know, it was whatever.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The fact that. I mean, I think a lot of people those people that were saying that there were no games this year were probably the Cyberpunk people that were like, yeah, there's no games this year because like their game that they were gonna sink thousands of hours into was actually a buggy piece of shit, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that the Game Awards itself was fine. You know, it was just super duper long. Maybe it's because I'm getting old or something. But you know, the announcements this year were fine. I think that the Sonic ones were definitely carrying the rest of them, in my opinion. But that's just
bias.
Me.
Yeah,
no bias, but you know. Some of the announcements were definitely kind of cool, like the Star Wars one and the Wonder Woman one. But, you know, for the most part, it was kind of just like whatever. Even the, what's it called? The goddamn, what's that new Elder game that they were...
Elden Ring?
Yeah. Elden Ring, you know, like...
I don't really care. So.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, I don't really care. And, like, that trailer that they showed at the end, I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck's going on, you know? But yeah. It is what it is, you know? People are excited for that game, and I'm not going to take that enjoyment from them. But for me personally, I was just like, whatever. But that's it for the Game Awards for us. Now we're going to talk about Hawkeye, the Disney Plus series. We're going to talk about spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, leave right now or go to the next part of the show, whatever the case is. So episodes 3 and 4. So episode 3 opens up with them sort of hostage, and we actually get to learn about Maya Lopez, and she's sort of like the commander of the tracksuits. So during this part, I was just like, how is this gonna play into everything else? But obviously, like, I'm stupid and I'm dumb, and it obviously does play into the bigger story here. And we learned that Ronin, aka Hawkeye, was taking out the tracksuits and took out her uncle, I believe, or her father.
Yeah, I think it's her father.
Yeah. Her dad. My fault. I was thinking about another character. Anyways, so that's why she's tracking Ronin, and that's why we learn about her backstory and how she's deaf and why she went to public school and everything like that. So I think that was definitely needed character development, so we actually care about who the villain is. And I think that learning who the villain is and caring about them and understanding their point of view is just as important as the protagonist. I think we learned that from Thanos, just from seeing him as a character within the Avengers movies and seeing, his point of view and everything like that, his backstory, et cetera. With this opening sequence with Maya Lopez and sort of learning her character was definitely nice.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's always good when they like develop the characters, like, the villains further and stuff like that. I think, her being a more sort of relatable reason why she's angry at the Ronin makes sense, because, she just saw him get their father stabbed him. So, I would probably be pretty mad too. So, like, her sort of like getting the tracksuits and like just trying to find the Ronin like makes sense. And mostly when she's like, she gets wind that the Ronin is maybe like doing stuff again. She's like, oh, gonna find this motherfucker, like kill him. So yeah, that makes sense for why she's doing what she's doing. So yeah, I think that's good, like needed character development as well.
And then
there's just like an action scene for the most of it, right?
Oh yeah, that's pretty much most of the episode. Like there's a lot of action, there's a lot of explosions. We get to see the different Hawkeye arrows and things like that. The Hank Pym one.
That was cool.
Yeah, that one was pretty cool. I was like, oh, okay, I guess, like that makes sense as to why he was telling her to aim up and shit like that. So, but the mention of the bigger boss, aka hopefully the Kingpin.
Yeah, Kingpin. Yeah.
Hopefully, because
at this point, if it's not Kingpin, I'm gonna be pretty disappointed. Because what else is there?
Look, they've already done it with WandaVision with the whole, Mr. Boner, some shit, whatever the hell that they did. So who knows? But I'm definitely holding my breath because I know Kevin Feige knows that the fans love the Daredevil Netflix series, and bringing those characters back into the MCU directly, especially starting with the Kingpin, because that actor, I forget his name, but him in that role is like fantastic. And if he is able to be in this Hawkeye show and within the greater MCU, I will be very, very happy. So
yeah, I like, obviously my brother's also a big fan of like the Daredevil stuff, and if they're all gonna be in the MCU now, I'm definitely gonna have to like watch the whole series, which it's been a long time coming. I really should have done it before. But yeah, if Kingpin really is in this, then yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to watch that. I heard nothing but good things about just Daredevil in general, so it's gonna be cool to see them sort of fit themselves into the MCU, and it's not gonna feel like too intrusive because they're in New York, there's crime, there's crime bosses and stuff, so it makes sense for him to be there. It's not like they're just doing it for the sake of having him there. Like it makes narrative sense that he would be there. And yeah, just I forgot how that episode ends. I'm trying to remember.
This episode ends with what's his name catching them inside of the apartment.
Right, I remember. Yeah, so yeah, I definitely think like I think they're both bad. Like I think the mom is definitely like evil, and I definitely think this guy is also evil. Like I think they're both like not good people. I don't know who they're. I think they were like they found like something on the computer. I forgot what it was. It was like that like ties to something.
Yeah. So they found out that the stepdad or whatever, he actually owns the business that the tracksuits are running.
Oh,
so
right, yeah.
I think that was like obvious. Like this guy sus, guys.
Yeah.
I think he's the imposter or some shit. You know what I'm saying? But seeing Hawkeye and Kate Bishop sort of work this case together and see their relationship and their dynamic develop further is obviously like the best part of the show. Seeing these two main characters sort of get to know each other, whether Hawkeye wants to or not, see them interact with each other, work together, is fun. And that scene where Kate Bishop is sort of like helping him hear what is being said on the phone by his son was obviously like very heartwarming and very cool. And obviously deepens their relationship. So
yeah, I think that was a really sweet scene, and like just her she kind of feels a bit bad for taking away his Christmas from them, because he's just like, oh, whoops. But I should have done that. But it's also nice that she like made it up to him. I think it was in the next episode, which they have like a whole like Christmas thing together. Like, I thought that was actually really like sweet, like bonding moment, and it was just really nice, like to see them like finally sort of like connect on a deeper level. Besides like hey, like, I fly alone, buddy. Like, it's like, oh, incredible syndrome. I mean, he does that sort of at the end of the episode, but like just seeing them get connected, like you can tell like he doesn't want her to like get hurt either, but also like he still wants to like teach her a few things and stuff. So
yeah, like he wants her help, but he doesn't want to put her in danger, because obviously like during that scene where he's talking to her mom and she's like, do you have children? Never mind that, and she just sort of like explains her point of view, like she's all I have left, etc., etc. So that's why like he starts pushing her away towards like the later half of that episode, and that's just how it is. They're sort of on two different paths, and obviously she knows the risks and she doesn't mind taking them, but obviously like he doesn't want to be held responsible for anything if something were to happen to her, like he just doesn't want that on his conscience, which is understandable as well. And I think that Kate Bishop actually, during their like bonding experience, sort of figuring out that he is Ronin, and like Hawkeye doesn't directly say it, but he sort of just like moves past it. Everyone dealt with the snap in a different way. It was sort of speaks louder volumes than him just saying I am Ronin.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I just think that the scenes with them together is obviously like the highlight of the show, and I just want more of it. But we only got 2 more episodes after this, unfortunately. So
yeah, like I think they're doing a good job with the Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, like sort of like chemistry, I guess. But yeah, it being like a shorter miniseries, I think is gonna, hopefully they could like wrap things up good and like I mean, I don't think this is the end of their team up. Like I think they're probably gonna be like working together, hopefully, for like a movie after this, maybe, I hope. But yeah, it's definitely like gonna be sad to see them like not be as big of a thing both together. They both do their own movies or whatever they have in store for the MCU. Because there's definitely like a good like chemistry. I always like the sort of like the apprentice and like the master sort of thing going on. Like Anakin and Obi-Wan, or like Peter B. Parker and Miles and Spider-Verse. I always like enjoy those sort of like things. But yeah, and I guess like sort of like the big thing how this episode ends is with what's her face from Black Widow, like Black Widow's sister. Like she's just like, oh hey, so I'm glad that movie was relevant.
Yeah, to, like, by the way,
to sort of like tie into like how that is. But wait, I thought no, because she got hired by the other lady at the end of Black Widow, right? And that's why she's like doing
something
stuff?
like that. Yeah, pretty much she thinks that Bart Clinton or Clint Barton, whatever.
Oh right, yeah.
Killed Black Widow. So
right.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on now because of that, and I knew that she was going to be in the show because they were teasing that within the after credit scene of Black Widow. So seeing this masked person on the roof, and he's like, then who am I fighting? I'm like, that's her. Like it's obviously obvious to us because we're the viewers of the MCU, but if you didn't watch that movie, you probably are like, who the fuck is this?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the action in this show is like fantastic, and I think it especially shows within these 2 episodes in particular. And Kate Bishop as a character, her going into the building by herself and sort of her doing it her way is a little immature, especially because she is sort of like she's not a kid, but she's definitely like in like her early 20s, right?
I think she said she was like 22 at some point.
Yeah. She said, I'm 22, I believe, within like episode 1 or 2.
In the early 20s, yeah.
Yeah. So like, her acting the way she is, you can argue that like it's a little out of character, but I think that, I'm fucking 23. I still think I'm a fucking kid, and I'm like immature and doing dumb shit in a way, like I'm definitely more mature than I was when I was 18, but still, nowadays I'm definitely still doing dumb shit because I'm in my early 20s, and her doing that same shit isn't too far-fetched. But then again, certain writing things I guess some people have a problem with, which I can understand, but it's Kate Bishop. She's trying to be funny. She's trying to be quirky, you know, like that's just her character.
I think it kind of just fits her character too. It doesn't feel too out of place for her because they've shown her like destroying a bell that destroyed that clock tower. So like she seems like she's more impulsive and like a little more reckless. Mostly because like she was also like really rich, so she feels a bit invincible, and she's young.
And
so
white.
I guess that. Yes, yeah, all of that combined so like fits the character, so I don't really see it as too out of character for her. And she's probably gonna have a moment where she's like, shit, I should probably be more serious about this stuff. So, you know, but she could still be quirky though, like, you know.
Yes,
so.
yes, she can still be quirky. She can still be funny, but you know, my definite main concern is how they're gonna wrap this show up in 2 episodes because you know apparently Kingpin's supposed to be in the next episode. He's supposed to be revealed in episode 5, so I don't know how that's all gonna play out. And you know how this entire operation with them trying to shut down the tracksuits and how Ronan's gonna get out of this situation and everything like that. You know, like I don't know how this show's gonna end within 2 episodes. If they actually do end it nicely with a bow, that would be pretty cool. But it's only 2 episodes worth, you know? Like there's not a lot of room here, in my opinion, to really end this show properly at this point. So obviously we're just gonna have to wait and see, but I hope that this show is able to stick the landing because I think shows that have bad endings definitely have a worse rep than shows with good endings, if you will. You know, yeah. I think that we can definitely pinpoint shows that are like, that ending was like really, really bad, which like makes you want to think that the show itself was all bad. Like on a completely like different note that is away from the MCU, How I Met Your Mother. You know, people watched that show for years and years and years, and then the ending was like dog shit, which I can understand as a person that binge watched the show. You know, I thought the ending was okay. It could have been better, but you know, for people that were watching that show as it was coming out and then they get that ending, they're like, wait, what the fuck? And then same thing with WandaVision. That ending wasn't the best. It was kind of bad, honestly. But, you know, some people still really do like that show. And, you know, the journey to get to that ending was fine. But I think that the ending of the show makes a lot of people think that show was just bad.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I think having a good ending will always be like for the best. Like, even if like the beginning of a show isn't too great, like people could appreciate that if the ending is something good, right? Like, I think if you binge a thing, you don't mind it as much. Like Mass Effect, right? Like, I played all through all the Mass Effect games, and the ending for 3 didn't really bother me that much because the journey was more fresh in my mind. But if you're watching it week to week throughout years of like build up and stuff, and you end with a shitty ending or something like Game of Thrones, like you're gonna be like, yeah, you're gonna be a little miffed about it. So yeah, it kind of. Yeah, I think having a good ending is always going to be very important for any media. Like, I think that's more important than having a good start because at least people could say, hey, it gets better and then it ends good. So like, if it ends bad, it's like, oh, what's the point? Like, I was going to watch Game of Thrones, but since it ended shit, I'm like, what's the point? Like, I'm not even going to watch it, you know? So yeah.
Definitely true. But yeah, I mean, so far so good with Hawkeye. It is definitely my favorite MCU thing as of recent, just because you know I like the Winter Soldier show like by far, just because it was obviously like a Captain America show just with Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes, but with this one, you know, it's very grounded. It deals with Kate Bishop, and I think you know, her character coming into the MCU, you know, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I hope that is able to stick the landing when we get there.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, Loki is still my favorite one so far, so we're gonna see if this one could be like my number 2 or maybe number 1. We're gonna see how it ends, you know, like we were just saying.
And for example, Loki had actually a pretty good ending because it, you know, split off with the multiverse and all that other stuff. So
yeah.
But yeah, that is it for Hawkeye. Now we're gonna talk about a lot of Spider-Man stuff. So first we're gonna talk about some Tom Holland news and also our experience getting tickets. So do you want to talk about the ticket experience or?
Yeah, I'll talk about the ticket experience. So so the tickets went live at 12. You know, I forgot, when was Spidey Monday? I don't remember what day that was.
Yeah, so it went up on December 6th at 12:01 a.m. EST.
Okay. So I use Fandango to get my tickets. Yeah, that's just how I've always done it. I use Regal, and so I was just trying to like get in there, and it just did not work. Like Fandango just shit the bed. Like it was like not working. for like 2 hours. I was up till like 2 a.m. because I was afraid I wasn't going to get it. I just kept refreshing. It kept getting error codes. The furthest I went was to pick a seat. I would pick a seat and then it would just crash. I'm like, no. So I just kept doing it over and over again. I saw on Twitter, I was like reading like the Twitter, like, sort of like the new thing, like about people trying to get the tickets. And I saw a lot of people giving up. I'm like, oh, yes. So that means I could like get it. And yeah, by like 2 a.m. I was able to get it. So I was like, okay, good. And then I went to sleep. So it was definitely a gigantic pain in the ass to get it. And I'm glad I did, because I saw a lot of tickets were really selling out like crazy, because this is like the movie people are coming back for the theaters for. Like, it's been a very long time since people have gone to the theaters because of COVID. And since things are getting a bit better, obviously there's like Omicron now, we won't talk about it. But things have been getting a bit better, so people are more comfortable getting out. Like me too, I have my booster, I got all my shots, so I'm comfortable going to the movie theaters. And this is a big thing, especially since it's like near the holidays and stuff. So yeah, I expected it to be crazy, but I'm actually like kind of miffed that Fandango and all the other websites weren't able to like anticipate this. Like, you guys haven't had any business in like a year, and this is how you're gonna treat people that come back? Like, come on, man. But yeah,
I mean, they weren't expecting this because it's been so long, and the last time something like this happened, I believe, was with Endgame, and I didn't do the same thing with Endgame. I think I literally like just went on, I think it was Regal or AMC or whatever. I literally just went on there, got my tickets, and that was it. Like, I didn't have to like worry or stress about it, and I got it opening week. I think I went to see Endgame on like a Friday night or something like that. But with this one, it's fucking Spider-Man. So I was definitely up at 12 a.m. And I was on my computer until like 1, because I literally had every single thing open. I had Fandango, I had AMC, I had Regal. I had all of those open, but then again, the fucking error code showed up. And I fucking class the next day, and I have to wake up at like 7:30. So I was like, fuck it, I'm done. So then I went on my phone, and I went on the AMC app. And the AMC app, the reason I went on the AMC app was because I have A-List, and I could use A-List to go and get my 1 free ticket or up to 3 free tickets for that week, and I pay like $25 a month. But I think because I signed up recently, I think I paid like not even that much for the first couple of months. So I was like, all right, cool. So I was on there, right? It said queue time. I was like, 40 minutes. All right, cool. So I'm just sitting in my bed, read some manga, just like wait. It goes down to like 5 minutes, right? And then it says over an hour. And I was like, no fucking way they did that to me, bro. So then it's like almost 1 a.m. or something like that. I'm like watching it, and then I like fall asleep while I was like watching my phone. And then I wake up, I try to go and get the ticket, and then it said your time expired. It said like 12:58 or something was like your expired time. And I was like, fuck, literally if I stayed up for like 5 more minutes, I would have gotten. But anyways, I literally went back to bed, and then I woke up at like 4 a.m. Went on the AMC app, got 2 tickets for the Thursday showing, and then I texted my brother who was downstairs sleeping. I was like, let me know if you want to see it again Friday, because I will buy tickets again for Friday. And he said, yeah, sure. So then I bought tickets for Friday as well. So because I know I'm gonna see this movie multiple times, and if I could see it in a packed theater, which might not be the safest option, but if I could see it in a packed theater, I think that experience is all worth it, just because you're seeing it opening weekend with these fans, with these fucking nerds, and like that experience is something that I will never forget when I went to go see Endgame. Like with Endgame, when I saw Captain America lift the fucking hammer, like that shit will forever be in my mind when I go see movies, because I was literally still thinking about that scene the day after when I was at work, because I'm like, I'm gonna see this fucking movie again, and like I'm gonna fucking have a fucking nerdgasm when I see that shit again. You know what I'm saying? Because like that moment will always be in my memory as like one of my top 2 moments when I go and see movies. And like that's a moment where I was like, yes, that was fucking awesome. And I hope that No Way Home can do the same thing, especially with how much shit has been rumored, speculated. We now have confirmed the villains with all of they're literally all from the other Spider-Man movies. And, you know, with the Tobey and Andrew rumors, you know, they haven't been officially shown yet, but people are, you know, very much leaning towards that. And with the addition of Charlie Cox potentially being in the movie as Daredevil, you know, like there's obviously so much shit going on in this movie, but I think that they'll actually be able to land it. And that could be the fucking hype talking. I'm not gonna lie. That could be the hype talking, but you know, I was very, very glad to go and get my tickets. And, you know, I went to school that morning and, you know, some of my classmates had that same exact experience where they would, you know, they were up at like 12 a.m. and they were like, yeah, man, I like fucking couldn't get tickets. And like one of my classmates needed a lot of tickets because like he was going with like a huge ass group of friends. So like there was like no
put
shot.
It all on him.
Yeah, no shot. He was going to get all of those tickets in that one go. But yeah, I'm pretty sure at this point, opening weekend tickets are like all full. I think the Monday of, like the Monday of for that weekend after, I think you could probably secure tickets easily. And I was seeing like eBay listings on like Twitter and shit like that of people trying to sell them for like thousands of dollars, which is fucking ridiculous because this movie's going to be in theaters for however long. You're just not going to be able to see it opening weekend, which, you know, sucks. But, you know, if you did get your tickets opening weekend, I'm sure you're going to have it as just much fun as us as, you know, hopefully you are.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience. I'm really glad I was able to just like stay up to get it. Yeah, I feel like if I would have like massive just like annoyance if I wasn't able to get it right then and there. In the morning, I was probably able to get it just fine as well, but you know, I wasn't gonna risk that. So
yeah, definitely glad that I kept, you know, going back to sleep and waking up that night because I was like, I need to get these fucking tickets. You know what I'm saying? Because you know, there's no way I'm missing this movie on Thursday night. So. Yeah, very, very excited. And on top of that, they announced that Tom Holland will continue playing as Spider-Man within the MCU for another trilogy. So people are dubbing this the college trilogy, if you will, which makes sense because he is trying to get into college in this movie. So, you know, if it's going to be the college trilogy, you know, I hope that they are able to maybe adapt things a little more towards the comics. I don't know. I know that Tom Holland recently said that he wants Timothy Chalamet to be Harry Osborn in the MCU if they decide to go in that direction. And I think that can work because I know him, Timothy, and Zendaya are all like pretty good friends. Right. So I think that seeing them three on screen as MJ, Peter, and Harry, that could be kind of fun. But we're just going to have to wait and see because obviously like this adaptation of Spider-Man has been very different because it is so tied to the MCU. You know, whatever this college trilogy has in store, I cannot wait to see Tom Holland in this role more because I think that he does a fantastic job, you know, despite what other people say about his role and his performance because of just the circumstances that he was brought into the MCU, which we'll talk about more within our tier list. But yeah, I'm excited to see more Spider-Man from Mr. Holland.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna be interesting. You know, I think, you know, the Iron Man Jr. thing, I think that's gonna die down, especially with this, you know, with No Way Home. Like, I think this is gonna be the movie where he becomes like a full-fledged Spider-Man himself. Like, he's always been sort of like, you know, there, but he hasn't been like, you know, like Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield levels where he's like saving the city by himself and stuff, which is fine because this does feel more like an origin story of this Spider-Man than anything. So if this trilogy could sort of end it with him being like, okay, I know what it means to be a Spider-Man now, and then his college years could just be him, you know, just being like a Spider-Man for real. Like, I think that would be like I think that'd be really cool. Like, I've never had a problem with Tom Holland Spider-Man, to be honest. Like, I've always thought he did a good job with it, but you know, I do get the complaints that he needs like a lot of outside help to like do a lot of things. So if, you know, he could be a little more independent and like just have his own storylines and stuff without too much MCU interaction, I think that would be pretty cool in like the next trilogy. Like, obviously it'd be cool to see more MCU cameos because, you know, that's the whole reason why he's in the MCU. But you know, I think it'd be neat to just see him like, you know, be like a hero by himself without needing like Doctor Strange or Iron Man or anything. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I think that isolating him a lot more, which is what I learned when I was watching the other Spider-Man movies for this tier list that we're gonna do. You know, just seeing Peter Parker struggle by himself and have no one else really help him other than him and his brains and whatever else he could really, you know, come up with was something that I missed within the I guess Tom Holland trilogy. So I hope that maybe within this next one, you know, he is able to do that more, you know, just be by himself, be that poor, you know, New York Yorker kid who has nothing on, he has a chip on his shoulder, if you will, and he's just trying to get through college now. So I think that this can be fun. This can be very interesting. We don't know if John Watts is going to come back to direct this, which is exciting in my opinion, because I know John Watts, he did a good job with the previous 2 movies, but I think that taking a different director and maybe a different approach with this new trilogy, as like a new start, if you will, for these characters, I think that could be pretty fun. So
yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see, and it's just like really cool to see a Spider-Man last more than 3 movies. So
yeah,
it's gonna be very cool. We never had that happen. We never had like a solidified Spider-Man before, so it's gonna be cool for Tom Holland to really grow with the role and like see like just how he evolves the character. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sort of like with the Harry Potter actors, they were little kids, and then by the end of it, they were full-fledged adults.
Yeah,
so
I mean, Tom Holland isn't like that small. He's like our age, so
he's not that young, but by the end of this, he'll be closer to his 30s than when he started. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but now for probably a really, really large part of the show, we're gonna do our Spider-Man tier list. So I'm going to start streaming on Discord, and you could just hop right in, and we will discuss our Spider-Man movie tier list. So obviously we're putting this in S. We're putting Spider-Verse into the Spider-Verse in S, just because we're only doing the live action movies for this tier list and sort of like discussing them, but this tier list has Into the Spider-Verse in it, so we're just gonna put that in S because that is by far the best Spider-Man movie out there, in my opinion, and just like a really good story about Spider-Man as a character, not just Peter Parker Spider-Man, but just being Spider-Man and what being Spider-Man really means. So
yeah, I I don't want to take too much time from all the other ones, but Spider-Verse is like definitely my favorite one. I watch it the most out of like all these other ones. I'm not saying a lot because I have watched the other ones like a shit ton of times as well. But yes, I think Spider-Verse just had so much heart into it, and I think it did a good job with Miles and started introducing him to the general public for good. I didn't know who he was, and just just sort of like showing like what it is to be Spider-Man, like how anyone could really be a hero and stuff. Like I don't know, I thought it was just very good. Like it was really good. The animation was fantastic. The comedy was real good. It was real funny. Like it was just a fantastic movie. I loved it a lot, and it's my favorite Spider-Man movie. So
all right, so let's talk about them in order.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna go from the Sam Raimi trilogy to the Mark Webb duology to the Tom Holland movies. Okay. So the first Spider-Man movie. So obviously, like this was my introduction to the character in like a big way, and I'm sure you could say the same thing for you.
Yes.
But yeah, actually first. How many of these movies did you rewatch for this tier list?
Watched 2 and Amazing Spider-Man 1 because those were the only ones that were like kind of foggy because like we watched like some of these like during movie nights and stuff. Yeah. So
just like randomly.
so Amazing, not Amazing Spider-Man 1, right? So like obviously there's nostalgic for both of us. Like I remember watching it in theaters when I was small. Like I like one memory that's really vivid to me is like when Green Goblin's attacking like the parade and stuff was like I wanted to go to the bathroom and my mom was like, bro, like it's like the exciting part of the movie. You want to go? Like, I just remember that part so vividly. But yeah, Spider-Man 1, I think this was sort of like what made superhero movies really popular to begin with. Like it has like a lot of legacy and like history. Like a lot of people like this is still everyone's favorite, like just Spider-Man, like Tobey Maguire. You know what I mean? This is where it started. That's not to say it's pretty hokey now. There's a lot of hokey stuff in it, but that's sort of the charm for it too, right? Like some of the the Sam Raimi stuff is like dorky and like hokey and like weird, but like that's the charm of just sort of how the Sam Raimi stuff is. And I think Spider-Man 1 is sort of like a good balance of it. I think Spider-Man 2 is a little more serious, and Spider-Man 3 is way too a little too much on that side. But I think Spider-Man 1 definitely has a really good balance of both. And I think it still feels, I don't want to say timeless, but it is like a classic. You know what I mean? Like I could watch this whenever and just be like, yeah, that's good shit.
Yes, 100%. When I was rewatching this, literally I was like, wow, like I don't have like any like huge problems with the movie. Obviously like it is corny, it is sort of like cheesy, but that's just because it was made in the 2000s, and seeing Tobey Maguire in this role and seeing Sam Raimi behind the camera and how he directed this movie and how he brought the character of Spider-Man to the big screen and sort of to the larger, wider audience that made Spider-Man as popular as he is today. And, like you said, this is a classic movie. Like this origin story of Spider-Man, may not be 100% towards the comics, but it is definitely a really, really solid retelling of Peter Parker's story of how, he became Spider-Man, of great power comes great responsibility, etc. And, doing that so well within this first movie, it's definitely high A tier, potentially S tier. I'm not exactly sure where you would put it, Damian.
I would put it in A tier because I think, which we're going to talk about in Spider-Man 2, I think Spider-Man 2 is better. I think Spider-Man 2 is personally the peak of the Sam Raimi stuff.
Yes,
that's not controversial at all to say. Everyone regards Spider-Man 2 as like the best of the Sam Raimi stuff. Like that's like kind of like there's not a very controversial opinion. But I think Spider-Man 1 does set the foundation really well for not even just Spider-Man, just like all superhero movies to follow. And I think it did a lot of things well, like set up so many like characters and stuff, like Norman Osborn and like Harry and like Mary Jane. Even though there's one thing I don't like about this Sam Raimi stuff is Mary Jane. It kind of sucks in this series.
Yeah, I mean, like in the second movie she was fine. I think.
In the second movie she was fine. Especially like in the third one she got like really annoying to me. But but yeah, just everything about Spider-Man 1 is great. Like the action is still pretty good. I love the like the bridge scene when he's like saving everyone with
yes,
yeah, like like itsy bitsy spider. Like, I don't know why all that stuff is very the parade scene. There's so many iconic scenes.
Yes,
I still love the Green Goblin design in this as well, and I'm happy they're adapting it really well for Far From Home. So like that's always neat to see. No Way Home, sorry. Too many homes, right?
Yes, sir.
But just like there's just so many iconic things to it, and I think that the movie still holds up pretty well. Like even if you're like maybe a younger Spider-Man fan, you never watched the Sam Raimi like trilogy, I definitely think Spider-Man 1 is definitely still a fantastic like start to like this series. So yeah.
Yeah, and Spider-Man 2. I remember my dad taking me to watch this in theaters, but I don't actually remember watching it in theaters. I know I have like the popcorn bag from the old movie theater. I still have that along with Spider-Man 3 up in my bedroom. But yeah, watching Spider-Man 2 when I was younger, I honestly didn't really like it that much. But then again, it came out in 2004 and I was like, 6 years old? So like, I had no idea what the fuck this movie was talking about. I was like, why is Spider-Man losing his powers and shit? But obviously watching it this week, I was like, yeah, this movie's like fucking amazing. Like there's a reason why people regard this as one of, if not the best superhero movies of all time. And it really does show, the balance between being Peter Parker and being Spider-Man. And every single time he does something as Spider-Man, I had that thought in my head. I was like, shit, he's going to fuck up something with, the life of Peter Parker. And then once he gave that up, you see that like, he's not Spider-Man anymore, but the city's suffering, but he is succeeding as Peter Parker. But that's just the curse of being Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, and like as a kid, I always had that same reaction. I'm like, why is he quitting? What is this? I really like the movie as a kid. Like I remember because obviously I also played the shit out of the game on PS2. But yeah, I remember having that same reaction. But now watching it again, it's like, yeah, obviously it makes sense why when you're any superhero, like you gotta sacrifice like a lot. Actually, they talk about this in Hawkeye too. It's like Hawkeye was like, you gotta sacrifice a lot of like your life to like be a superhero. And I think Spider-Man 2 like showcases that really well. And just like, dude, the fight scenes are like, I still think that there's some of the best fight scenes in any Spider-Man anything. If anything, I think the Home trilogy probably has the weakest fights of like the whole series probably. Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man series is a little iffy too, but definitely the Sam Raimi trilogy definitely has some of my favorite fight scenes in all the Spider-Man like anything. And the one obviously just like the train fight is just so fucking good. Like that would always be like such an iconic scene in just like movie anything. Like it just just him fighting Doc Ock there, like him stopping the train. Obviously it's really cheesy and all like all like taking him like they unveil his mask. Oh, he's just a kid and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, but it's really good. Like it's still like that moment is still like it gets me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is cinema, if you will. That's what Twitter would say. Yeah, Spider-Man 2 is just fucking amazing. Like, what else can there be said? So
yeah, just like Doc Ock is also just really good in this movie too. Like, I think they did a good job just making him feel like more of like a tragic character. Because I think Norman Osborn was also like sort of like that too. Like, you know, he wasn't really like a bad guy, but he was also like, you know, because of the Green Goblin like gas thing, like he became a little more mad. But this one, I feel like Doc Ock is a little more, you know, sympathetic because, you know, his wife died because of the sun thing, and then he goes crazy with the. I guess it's sort of the same thing with the. With his arms, like, sort of talking. That was a little weird. With his arms started talking to him and stuff. But, you know, still, like, it's always tragic characters with Spider-Man. I think that's why I always like the villains more than any other superhero thing. Because a lot of them aren't inherently bad. Like, they're just kind of, like, misfits and stuff. Or, like, has something really tragic to them happen. And, I don't know, that always hits a bit harder than just having some big, bad, nobody, like, bad guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely know what you're saying. And, you know, just watching this movie again, you know, from start to finish, I was enjoying it the whole way through, you know. But Spider-Man 3. So I still remember watching this one in theaters.
I do,
and,
yeah.
I came out of it, and that was my personality as a kid from 4th through 5th grade. I'm not even lying. But that's just because I just loved Spider-Man as a character. Obviously, watching this movie now, like, it's definitely all over the place. You can tell that Sam Raimi, he had a vision for what he wanted for Spider-Man 3 to be, with, like, you know, it was all leading up to Harry Osborn being the new Goblin, and maybe the Sandman was a part of it, but I definitely know that he didn't want to do Venom. But unfortunately, you know, Sony was like, people want fucking Venom, so give them Venom. And he was like, fine, fuck it, whatever. So, you know, he tried his best to do what he could with what he was told to do by implementing the black suit, implementing Eddie Brock, and all of these things that Sam Raimi didn't necessarily want to do with this movie. But somehow he makes it work, in my opinion. Like, despite it being all over the place and like many, many, many different storylines intertwining with one another, you know, we go from the Harry storyline to the Sandman storyline back to, you know, something else. And it definitely flip-flops a lot throughout the movie. But once we get to the end, it kind of all comes together in a way, you know. But at the end of the day, it is nowhere near as good as the other two, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, it's definitely obviously the weakest out of the Sam Raimi trilogy, just because there's just a lot going on, and I feel like that's an issue with a lot of, like, the last bits of these Spider-Man movies. Like, I'm hoping the, you know, No Way Home doesn't suffer the same thing, because we know there's going to be a lot in that movie. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Amazing Spider-Man 2 also had a lot going on at the end, where it's like, okay, like, what the fuck is, like, there's a lot. And,
yes,
you know, I mean, and Spider-Man 3 just obviously has, like, a lot going on. Like, there's, like, 3 different villains and stuff. Like, it's just too much going on. I feel like if they were able to save Venom for, like, a 4th movie, if they got it or something, it would have just been better. If they just focused on Sandman and, like, Harry becoming, like, the new Goblin and stuff. I think it would have been better that way. Or just have Venom be the main, like, I don't know. There was, like, a lot of ways, but having everyone in one movie was just too much. And I felt like they weren't able to, like, just focus on one thing. And, yes, you know, obviously all the infamous scenes are just funny to me now. Like, you know, it's just, like, I just laugh my ass off whenever I see them now when he's going all emo Peter. I, you know, even as a kid, I didn't like this movie that much. I'm gonna be honest. Like, even when I was a kid, I was like, "Oh man, this movie isn't great." And, like, I just have that memory pretty clearly as well. And yeah, it's just definitely, like, kind of sad that the Sam Raimi trilogy had to end in such an anticlimactic way. But it's still enjoyable. Like, I think if you watch it now, you could, like, laugh at it in, like, a fun way and not be too frustrated with how it is. But when it came out, it was definitely, like, pretty sad to see. Like, you know, there was a lot of potential here that it just didn't have to, like, you know, it just didn't get the chance to, like, shine. You know what I mean? And I'm sad Venom still isn't, like, properly, like, done. Like, I know people like the Venom movies, and I have to give them a shot, but, like, I don't know. I always felt like Venom, I always wanted to be a more serious thing instead of what we got, and him being super tied with Spider-Man, and we still don't have that when Venom is such a big thing for Spider-Man to face. Like, it's still really frustrating to see that hasn't been done super well yet. So yeah, this is the closest we've gotten in the live action sense. And and it still isn't great. I mean, I'll put this movie in C tier, if I'm gonna be honest. 'Cause I think there's still things to enjoy about it that's not bottom of the barrel, but it's still, like, obviously is the weakest of the Sam Raimi trilogy, and it's pretty infamous for a reason. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. C tier is definitely the highest / lowest I would put it. You know, Sam Raimi, you can still tell that he's behind the camera. You know, the action scenes are still super fun to watch. The dialogue, the writing, like, everything about this still screams Sam Raimi. Is just that what's actually going on in the movie itself, you know, there's just way too much going on. And, you know, if they were to actually just let Sam Raimi do what he wanted to do with this movie and then maybe save Venom and all of that other stuff for Spider-Man 4, I think that would have been a lot better. But, you know, unfortunately, you know, they wanted to do it in Spider-Man 3. So, you know, that's what we got.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what it is. Now let's talk about the amazing duology. So the first movie, I always say this. I don't know. I do know why, because I don't give a shit about sharing this. But when I saw The Amazing Spider-Man 1 in theaters, when Uncle Ben died, I don't know why, but I just fucking cried.
Yeah.
I think it was because I was seeing it with my dad, and I was just like, I don't know. I just got emotional, and like I just, you know, tears started falling out, and my brother looked at me like, what the fuck are you doing? But you know, the movie itself, you know, I literally just watched this yesterday. The Amazing Spider-Man 1, I think Andrew Garfield as an actor, as Peter Parker, I think that he did what he could within the role. I think that he's a little too cool for this Peter Parker.
Yeah.
But he's still the loner. He's still the quiet kid in the back of the classroom. You know, he's not like super smooth guy, if you will. But he's still, you know, there's still a sense of Peter Parker in him there. And then, you know, I think that the movie moves a little too slow when it comes to like doing like trying to like flesh out like the origin story of like, you know, Uncle Ben getting shot and like him getting bit by the spider. Like everything's done like kind of slow in my opinion. So when we finally get to him being Spider-Man, it's all about revenge. And then once he saves that kid, he's like, oh wait, I can actually like save people in this fucking costume.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then that's when he's like, you know, it's my responsibility to like stop the lizard because he's the one who actually created him, which is one thing that I really liked about this movie and the Sam Raimi movies was that all of Spider-Man's villains were somewhat tied to him, whether he actually did like cause them or like they were related to him, like with the Green Goblin, you know, that is his best friend's dad. And then with Sandman, whether that was like, you know, retroactively sort of like reversed or whatever, but you know, with Dr. Kirk Connors, you know, like he actually gave him the formula to become the lizard, and you know, seeing the lizard slowly go insane. And I know that there were scenes that they cut from this movie that were supposed to like flesh out the lizard and like be a little more sympathetic towards his character. So like I believe his kid was like a couple of the scenes that they cut out, and I think that there was another scene that was also cut out where it was Peter Parker and him in the sewers where like he followed him and they were actually yeah. So like that was supposed to be a thing too, but like they like changed it or whatever. But they changed a lot of stuff in the second movie, which we'll talk about later. But this one, there's also a lot going on. They never resolved the sort of like finding Uncle Ben's killer thing. Like he literally spends weeks trying to find him, and then they just give that up. I'm not sure if it's because of when he talked to Gwen Stacy's dad, and he was like, you know what, he is right. I am being a fucking psycho, you know, like trying to find, you know, this one guy within the entire city of New York or whatever. But you know, they sort of dropped that plot line, and the entire problem with this duology of movies is just the romanticization of Peter's parents. And like you can't really just like take that out of these movies and suddenly these movies are better, because those parents, those two characters are so tied into these movies. It's kind of hard to just like, oh, you know what, we could just like forget about them and then move on, because they're literally tied to the spiders, they're tied to Oscorp, they're tied to literally everything within these movies, which sucks, because I think that was never the story of Spider-Man. And I think the fact that that Sony tried to adapt that kind of story for these movies is what really made these movies suffer.
Yeah, like I don't know why they had such a hard on with that. Like it was just like, I guess it was just to be different from the Sam Raimi stuff. It's like, oh, we could explore like their parents and like, or Peter's parents, like make it like more of a big thing. But just like, who cares? Like, I feel like their parents like shouldn't be like that big of a thing. Like you could bring it up and like sort of have like a tiny subplot to it, but it being such a big thing in these two movies is like weird. Like I don't know why they felt so focused. Even when I was watching it when it first came out, I'm like, why we're focusing on this? Like why does this matter? Like they should put more screen time with like all those cut Lizard stuff, because I felt like Lizard felt a little like not shafted, but like I don't know, he needed a little more as well. Mostly because like I always wanted Lizard to be like adapted in a live action thing, because Dr. Connors is always like a pretty like important thing and like a lot of the Spider-Man stuff. So like not having as much about him and more about like his parents, I'm like whatever, who cares? And Andrew Garfield himself, like I think I always thought he was like a good Spider-Man. Like I think he got Spider-Man with his quips. I think he's better a bit than Tobey Maguire in terms of like his quippiness and stuff like that. Like I think that's pretty good. But him as Peter, he doesn't sell it to me at all. Like I think he's too like cool. Like I know
he's too handsome.
Yeah, he's too like handsome and stuff. Like he doesn't really fit what I think Peter should look like. And I don't know. It just always disconnected me from the movie itself. And just like overall, I don't know. It just feels like a mess. Like there's like too many like plot points and stuff they want to do, but just never happen. And I feel like they always try to set up for something bigger again with the parents or just like with some of their villains and stuff, and just nothing ends up happening. Like it just like feels like a mess. But I still like sort of enjoyed Amazing Spider-Man 1. Like I think I don't enjoy it as much as Spider-Man 3. Like I'll put it in C tier, but behind Spider-Man 3 because I don't think there's like a lot. Well, there's a lot wrong with it, but I try to be sort of nice here because I still kind of enjoyed it. Like,
yeah,
I think the reason why I'm putting it in C tier because I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 is so much worse that it makes it look a bit better in comparison.
Yes, definitely. My favorite part about these movies is when Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are interacting with one another.
Yeah.
Seeing that relationship and seeing Gwen Stacy on the big screen was like awesome. Like I love Emma Stone, like, you know, celebrity crush and all. But, you know, seeing her in the role of Gwen Stacy, she sells that role like perfectly. And, you know, the fact that she's smarter than Peter and the fact that she's useful, right? Like that she's useful. She helps Peter despite him not wanting her to help because it's dangerous. And, you know, that happens in the second movie where it does end up biting her. But, you know, she helps with the lizard. She helps with Electro. You know, her character is actually fucking useful. Unlike in all three movies where MJ is sort of like the damsel in distress. And the second movie, you know, she does sort of tell Peter that lesson where like, you know, like I should make this choice whether I want to be with you or not and shit like that. You know, like that's sort of like the one time where her character wasn't, you know, totally just like useless or whatever. But Emma Stone is Gwen Stacy. I loved her within the role, and I think that that's why some people really do love these movies is seeing Gwen Stacy on screen and seeing them two interact with one another because, you know, it was just so much fun. But, you know, the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, personally, I would put it above Spider-Man 3 in my opinion.
Okay.
But, you know, we will keep it behind Spider-Man 3 within the C tier. But yeah, you know, Amazing Spider-Man 1, the suit itself, you know, it was very different. I am going to be honest. But yeah,
I wasn't a big fan of it, honestly.
Yeah, but I didn't mind it either. I know that a lot of people characterize Andrew's Peter or Andrew's Spider-Man within like the first half of the movie as like an asshole because he was actually like a vigilante. He wasn't really doing stuff for good until, you know, that scene, which I really do like. About this movie and the Sam Raimi movies where we see Spider-Man just like, you know, helping the little guy, which doesn't happen a lot in Far From Home because he's in fucking Europe. It does happen a little bit within Homecoming within like the first part of it, but these movies in particular, you know, we just see, you know, Spider-Man saving people, and I think that is something that should always, you know, take precedence and should always be important within these movies, you know, whether it's a scene or two of them just, you know, saving people or whatever, because that scene where he saves that kid from the car was definitely a scene that I will remember and sort of take away from this movie.
Yeah, just going back to like the whole like Gwen Stacy thing. Yeah, when I first watched these two movies, like, I thought I'm like, I don't care about this. Who cares? I just want to see Spider-Man. But yeah, as I watched them again, I'm like, yeah, those are the strongest part of the movie because I felt like they had the most care put into it, and it did feel like pretty genuine, and like their relationship just felt a lot better than the MJ and Peter relationship in the Sam Raimi trilogy. Because I always, you know, like I said, like I just didn't like MJ's character by the end of the Sam Raimi trilogy. She just like was annoying and like didn't do anything. You know, Gwen Stacy helps Peter a lot in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and it was really sad when she did like die in the second movie. I thought that was one of the better scenes in that movie. Was like when she died, because you generally like you actually do feel really sad because like she was a good character. She wasn't like MJ died. I wouldn't really care that much in the Sam Raimi trilogy, to be honest. But and you know, Gwen Stacy died. I think they did a great. That was one of the few scenes I think they really nailed in that movie, and I'm glad they did. It was like, you know, it's still like a pretty tense scene and stuff, and just seeing her die is it's a sad moment. I'm glad they were able to like really do that scene well. Everything else they didn't though. And Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Just before we get into the Amazing Spider-Man 2, I mean, the reason why the scenes with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are so good is because Mark Webb, you know, he directed 500 Days of Summer, which was a small indie film about these, you know, it was pretty much about this couple who, you know, were in love and then not in love, you know, so like those moments where they're sort of like vibing and sort of like, you know, that chemistry going, that's why, because Mark Webb knows how to create those scenes. And, you know, it plays the same way within the Amazing Spider-Man 2, where they're, you know, sort of like joking around with each other, where even after their breakup, you know, they're still flirting with each other and shit like that. Well, that could also be because they were dating in real life at that time. But, you know, the Amazing Spider-Man 2, we both saw this in theaters together, actually.
Yes.
And I think at the time when we walked out of that theater, I was like, I'm not entirely sure what to think of this movie, because I know that there was a lot going on and shit, but like I still enjoyed it because I was and still am a Spider-Man fanboy. So seeing, you know, the death of Gwen Stacy on screen and seeing their relationship develop even further, and, you know, this is the only movie where Peter Parker loses someone that isn't Uncle Ben, you know? And that was something that I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people like this movie so much, is because they see Peter, you know, actually lose someone that he truly cared about after he became Spider-Man, you know? And seeing that sort of like, I guess like very quick, like, you know, time lapse where he's gone for like 5-6 months, I was like, shit, you know, like Gwen Stacy's death obviously fucked him up. And that is definitely rightfully so, because within both of these movies you see their chemistry, their interactions and everything like that. But, you know, the other parts of the movie, you know, not so good ones. I mean, the suit, like the fucking suit is amazing.
Yeah, the suit is a lot better.
Yeah, it is definitely the best live action Spider-Man costume we've seen to date, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, is there anything else you want to say positively about this movie before we start ripping it?
Positively. Yeah, suit design good. I think, again, like I said before, I think Andrew did even better as Spider-Man in this movie. Like when he's fighting Electro in Times Square and he's like in his little fired like helmet and stuff, he like goes over like that's just cute, you know? Like I think they did a good job really making Spider-Man feel like Spider-Man. Again, less so with the Peter bits, but yeah, I think like he did nail Spider-Man in general, like especially in this movie. Like he did a good job. But yeah, that's about it, because a lot of the other things are just like, I just have a lot of issues with the movie. Like I think these went even further with with their parents, like with his parents and stuff in this movie, and I just don't know why. Like there was the whole part where he was like, he has like the whole thing, like, oh, you gotta go to like the subway. It's like a whole thing. It's like there's a coin, and then you put the coin, then the train comes and has a bunch of research things. I'm like, why is this here in this movie? It feels so disconnected.
Trying to solve that mystery, bro. He's still trying to solve that mystery.
Yeah, I just like I don't know. I just felt like I don't know why there was so much focus put into that, and like I felt like Electro could have been done good, but it just wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, just, you know, everyone memes the scenes when he's coming in. He's like, they're Jersey, me and they're Jersey, you know, all the voices in his head and shit. I'm like, yeah, I just feel like that stuff wasn't really handled very well either. And just, again, by the end of the movie, just a lot going on too with Harry and stuff. Like, there was just too much. I feel like every Spider-Man movie has suffered this issue by the end of it, where it's just like there's like a lot of things they want to do, and then like kind of gets rushed over towards the end, and then you kind of have like this battle at the end that feels like it came out of nowhere. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Because I know like it's just like there's just so much like things going on.
Yeah, like that's definitely a huge problem with it, because I literally just finished watching this because I didn't watch the recent Tom Holland movies, because Homecoming I literally watched like to death so many times, and Far From Home I watched when the first No Way Home trailer came out, because Kofi didn't see it before, and you know we watched it again together, and we'll talk about that movie later. But The Amazing Spider-Man 2, it sort of felt like the same problem with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, where there was just so much going on. They were jumping from plot point to plot point. You know, Peter's moving around so much. You know, he has the thing with Gwen Stacy where like, you know, he's seeing Captain Stacy, and you know he's like, I can't be with you, and like you're not gonna do with this me again. She breaks up with him actually, and then you know you have the whole thing with Harry coming back, and like the whole like the Osborn curse, and like suddenly he and Peter were like childhood best friends, like right before he went off to boarding school.
Curse,
like I don't know how like everything was able to like come together, and like how they were able to introduce Harry Osborn, because if he knows Osborn, like going to Oscorp shouldn't have been so foreign to him. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It felt like that there were certain things about this movie that was just all over the place. Electro, people have said their piece on Electro, and I'll say mine here. I think Jamie Foxx as an actor, he's great, but within this role, him being the goofy sort of like dorky guy, I'm not sure if he fits that. I think that he can be Electro, but I think the way that he was brought up as that character, wasn't exactly executed properly. But him being that sort of weird nerd outsider, and then when Gwen Stacy said "Have a nice day, Max," he was like, she actually remembered my name. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
When a girl compliments you, remember for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I was gonna say something else and I forgot. Shit. Goddamn it, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Okay, but anyways, like again, there's so much going on within this movie. There's so many cut scenes. They were supposed to introduce Mary Jane within this movie. After Gwen Stacy's death, his dad was supposed to show up at the grave explain to him like why he was gone and shit. And I'm like, what the fuck? He was alive this whole time. When I found that out online that like his dad was supposed to be in that scene, I was like, no fucking way they were gonna do that. Like, and the reason why they didn't do that was because early screenings were like, there's like way too that's way too much like emotional baggage going on there. Like you can't do that, So I'm glad they didn't do that, but just how this shit was going, they were setting up the Sinister Six or some shit.
Wait, when they setting up like Black Cat 2 or something? Didn't Harry
that was Felicia or whatever, and like apparently for Amazing Spider-Man 3, Gwen Stacy was gonna come back with like the Clone Saga and shit like that. Like I don't know what the fuck they were doing, but for this movie in particular, there was definitely a lot going on, way too much going on, and unfortunately, in my opinion, it is definitely the worst Spider-Man movie. Despite I love the work that Mark Webb has done with these characters. Him being behind the camera definitely helped within the scenes with Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker. And I love Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, but just like how it was all executed was just not it. So
yeah, I definitely think like the strongest part about this duology is the Peter and Gwen relationship, and like her death scene is also like really good. Unfortunately, I think everything else is not great, and I do think Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the worst movie, and I think it is a D tier movie, unfortunately. Even though I think that scene is really good, I feel like everything else just isn't. Like there's just too much going on. The Spider-Man parent subplot is really dumb. I feel like a lot of the villains didn't get like fleshed out at all. Like, I think like Green Goblin and Doc Ock in the Sam Raimi trilogy had like a lot more like interesting stuff going on, opposed to Dr. Connor and Electro and I guess Harry. Like the Harry stuff is just weird, like with the Osborn curse. I know that's like a thing, right, in the comics.
Mm-hmm. Something like that. I know that
in the game they're doing it in the Sony game, right? Like
there's something going on with the symbiote within that game. Spoilers for that game, by the way.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's all good.
No, the game is like 4 years old. Or 3 years old.
There's definitely something, because like I think the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon handled the sort of like Harry thing well with like the Goblin, where like he was like getting addicted on like drugs or some shit. So like that's actually what happened within the comics, where like he was actually getting addicted to drugs. So I'm not exactly sure how they were adapting it and shit like that for this duology, but like there was just a lot going on, and like that definitely shows when you're actually watching the movie, where like Peter goes from one thing to another like very, very quickly, and there's like multiple plot lines going on, and it all comes, or it's all supposed to come together at the end, where they have to kill Gwen Stacy at the end, and they're like, how the fuck do we do the Goblin when Norman Osborn's dead? All right, I guess we're gonna have to do something with Harry, so
yeah. And then just like I don't know, he goes like his design at the end was just so like dumb.
He was fucking insane.
Yeah, he's just a crazy man.
All right, so now let's talk about the Holland movie so far. So Homecoming, it coming right off of Captain America Civil War. I think that I always say this when I talk about Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because he was brought into Civil War, and he was brought in a way that they sort of had to cram him in the middle of everything, and I think that the way that they were able to execute on him, it's not comic book accurate. He's Iron Boy Jr., etc., etc. They skipped over Uncle Ben. They haven't even mentioned him at all within the MCU itself, which is unfortunate. But I think that the way that they have been able to execute on his story and the sort of Peter Parker storyline has been good enough as is. I'm not going to say that I love how they've been doing it, there are definitely certain things that I have my problems with, which I may or may not bring up if I remember them. But I think with Homecoming, it's very good. I think that I love this movie just because of the fact that, and I think I saw this in movie theaters with you too, Damian, the first time you saw it. Yeah. So, that was my second viewing. So I knew of the Vulture plot twist, and I was like, this shit.
That got me.
This shit gonna go crazy right now. So that was definitely like a highlight moment for me, because I was like, oh shit, like, actually bringing the villain back to, Peter Parker's life was definitely something that I loved. And, that car scene afterwards where, he's trying to, dance around the subject, and obviously the Vulture sort of piecing it all together. And yeah, I mean, the movie itself, with Peter trying to learn how to be Spider-Man without the suit and what it actually means to be Spider-Man, in a sense, he is coming into his own as Peter Parker, but so much happens between this movie and the next, it's kind of hard to really say that. And I think you are right when you say that, No Way Home is probably when Tom Holland actually becomes his own Peter Parker without, MCU sort of getting in there.
Yeah, because I feel like in each movie, he kind of needed some help from something. And, this movie is obviously Iron Man, and that's where a lot of the Iron Man Jr. stuff came from. But I still, really like, I think I like this movie as much as, like, the first Sam Raimi movie, because I think it does do a lot, like, good. It's different. I like that. I kind of, like that it didn't show Uncle Ben dying, because I think as an audience, almost everyone knows that already, and they want to just get into the movie already, which I do appreciate. Obviously, like, that moment is very important for Peter Parker, and it could kind of make the Tom Holland Spider-Man feel like he's never experienced loss before, because like, oh, like we didn't even see him, like, despite, like, how sad he was when Uncle Ben died and stuff. But I think as an audience, I think it's fine, because even if you never watch a Spider-Man movie, Uncle Ben dies. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying you need it or you don't need it, but I think the direction they took with this, we're not really showing it. And later on with Far From Home, like, basically, like, Iron Man is his Uncle Ben at this point when he dies, So I think that's a fine enough, like, thing to make it still feel more, like, connected to MCU and stuff, while also fitting, like, I guess Spider-Man's sort of, like, goal, like, the checklist of his character, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I have a tragic death for someone you care about, and then, like, just check that box or whatever. But yeah, in terms of the movie itself, like, I thought Vulture was great. Like, I thought, again, he fits in more what I expect from a Spider-Man villain, and just that twist with him being the daughter of, MJ and stuff, or the father of
Liz.
Yeah. So, like, I thought that was, like, really cool. Yeah. What else? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. No, the fight scenes, I think, are also, like, this is where I was talking about, like, where I think the fight scenes are a lot weaker in the like the MCU Tom Holland stuff rather than the Sam Raimi stuff, because I feel like a lot of times it just doesn't feel as good or stuff. Like, it's kind of hard to describe. Like, I feel like it's always like dark, or it's not as, like, I don't know. The cinematography
it doesn't feel as personal.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to describe, like, what I mean, but, like, if you just look at Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 1, even Spider-Man 3, I think had good fight scenes as well, compared to, like, both Far From Home and Homecoming. I feel like it did, like, it's like night and day, like, in terms of, like, just quality in terms of their fights, and I think that's one aspect that Tom Holland stuff always fails at. But if there's something I actually do like the most about these movies, is, like, the characters themselves. Like, I like all of them a lot. Like, just all the major, like, cast of characters. Like, I like Tom Holland a lot as Spider-Man. Like,
yeah.
I think, a lot of people don't really like the more young angle of his character, and, like, maybe he just, he seems like not as independent, which he isn't, like, he needs a lot of outside help. But I think he sells both the awkwardness of Peter Parker as well as being, like, a good Spider-Man. Like, he quips a lot. He's jokey and stuff. He's quirky, like, all the things you kind of need for a Spider-Man. But he does come off as awkward still. Like, he does look cool. Like, he's not like the pathetic geek, like, Tobey Maguire is in, like, those movies. But, like, he still comes off as, like, more of an awkward teenager. And I think, like, it fits it as well. Like, he has his own little group of friends and stuff. Like, he's not, like, that popular.
Yeah, Penis Parker, right?
Yeah, I forgot about that part.
that was definitely a nice twist on things. But yeah, I mean, him literally trying to be a Avenger, that's literally the entire movie. He's trying to get with the big boys, which I think was always the point of Spider-Man in the comics. He came in and, we already had Iron Man, Captain America, etc. So, Spider-Man trying to do his own thing was sort of in line with what was happening in the comics, but I but I don't think that originally he ever wanted to deal with that stuff. He always wanted to be, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man sort of thing. But, with this version of Spider-Man always wanting to, sort of do better stuff and always try to, solve things on his own was obviously led to, the whole boat thing and then, his suit getting taken away, which I hate that was shown within the second trailer. I hate that was sort of like a huge plot point that they just decided to show within the trailer because they needed Iron Man in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that this movie, I still love watching it. I still love revisiting it because it is just so much fun, seeing Tom Holland sort of take on this role and sort of, be that, jokey Spider-Man, especially that first scene with the bank, when he's like, oh, you're the Avengers, and all of this other stuff, like the jokes are funny. I think that his friends, Peter has a hard time keeping his fucking secret identity a secret, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he does.
Which that was an issue within the Mark Webb movies as well, in a sense. But somehow Aunt May never figured that out. I don't know how. But anyways, within Homecoming, Ned figures that out pretty quickly because, Peter didn't know that he was over building the Death Star or whatever, which, that is just what they're into. And that is, super fun to see that, they are sort of like the best friends of this series, and sort of taking Ned as a character that is sort of similar to Genki from the Miles Morales series was interesting. I think that is something that I personally wouldn't have done, but I think it actually works for this series instead of introducing Harry Osborn and sort of keeping it much more kiddie, much more, funny and friendly. Because I think that because they had to introduce Peter Parker halfway, or not even halfway, like, sort of insert him within the MCU, like I said earlier, having Ned as his, best friend character instead of Harry, I think that works well. But yeah, I just have so much fun watching this movie. And, the Iron Man scenes, I think a lot of people said this when that movie initially came out. Iron Man is not in the movie a lot, but then again, people still, associate him as Iron Boy Jr. and all of this other stuff. But he does learn what it takes to be Spider-Man, and it's not the suit. It's about, what he believes is right and everything like that.
Yeah, he still gets the same like lessons like from the Uncle Ben stuff, like just like differently in this movie. And I guess it's just more just to tie it to the MCU. And I like that. I mean, it was like really novel to see it when, because, this is the first time well, it wasn't the first time he was in Civil War, but you know what I mean? Like, this is the first time in his own movie, like in the MCU, and you get to see him interact with Iron Man. It was still cool when I saw it because I'm like, whoa, man, I never thought this was gonna happen. I always wanted Spider-Man in the MCU, and I'm glad he's finally in. It was a very exciting moment, and I think it's still good. Like I think his like thing with like Tony Stark is still good. Like, I like that he was like his mentor for a little bit. Like I thought that was like, is this something I didn't think would happen? But it's really cool. It makes sense because, Peter Parker is like a smart guy, and, him sort of like looking up to Tony Stark, and like, it just makes sense. So I'm glad, like, I've always never mind that chemistry between the two. Like, I know a lot of people have that issue, but I don't mind it that much. And just the fusion of this Peter Parker with like Miles, that's why I'm always like kind of like, I don't think they could put Miles in the MCU because he feels way too similar to Tom Holland's Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Tom Holland's like a weird mix of a lot of different Spider-Men. So putting Miles, like, he'll just feel too redundant at this point because Tom Holland kind of like feels like Miles at this point. I feel like if they waited for like the next like few phases when like Tom Holland looks a little older, which I don't know if he will, because I think he's always going to look like in his 20s. But, then they could have like Peter Parker sort of mentor like Miles and stuff. Like, I usually think that's how it probably should be. I mean, usually like Peter is dead, isn't he? Like most of the time when Miles like shows up. So like, that's sort of not really a thing that happens most of the time. But I don't know. I think it's too early to like to kill off Tom Holland, obviously, because he's getting 3 more movies. But yeah, overall, I think I know we're getting kind of off topic, but friggin' Homecoming, I think it's really good. I personally rank it as high as A, with a little bit behind maybe the Sam Raimi one, because I think the Sam Raimi one was such a good introduction to Spider-Man to so many people, and I think with Homecoming, you already have to be kind of into the MCU and Spider-Man to really get his character, but you also don't really need to know that much because he's freaking Spider-Man, so I think it's fine. But yeah, I think it was a great introduction to him, like having his own movie in the MCU, and I just really liked it a lot.
Yeah, I definitely wish I rewatched it before we did this, but Homecoming is still a movie that I have fond memories of, and I still enjoy watching every single time I pop it in to my PS5 or PS4 or whatever, because, you know, Homecoming is such a fun movie. And, you know, this is the first version of Peter Parker that we've seen that is still in high school, you know, because by the end or at the start of Amazing Spider-Man 2, he graduates high school at the beginning, or not the beginning, but like halfway through Spider-Man 1 from first Sam Raimi,
he graduates.
He graduates. So, you know, having this Peter Parker in high school still, and now at the end of this trilogy graduate high school, I think that that's cool, because, you know, he is this younger Peter Parker, and because of that, you know, you sort of see that energy and sort of see, because my favorite iteration of Spider-Man from the comics is the Ultimate version, and sort of see some of those elements be brought in for this Peter Parker is kind of cool. And even to some extent for the Mark Webb movies as well, you know, that they sort of pull pages from that Spider-Man as well, definitely within the final moments when he gets shot and then he like web shoots the wound or whatever. Yeah. Like that was straight up from the comic run, and I was like, that's fucking cool. But yeah, Homecoming, I definitely agree with you. It's definitely not within S tier, maybe low S tier in my opinion. Yeah. But, you know, definitely still a very, very good Spider-Man movie. And I definitely look forward to watching it whenever I get the chance to. So, you know, definitely a good introduction for the MCU Spider-Man, if you will, after Civil War. So,
yeah. So, now we have Far From Home. So I think this movie, I always have like a weird thing with it where it feels more like an epilogue to the Infinity Saga more than a Spider-Man movie in general to me, just because like it's kind of dealing with the fallout of everything that happened with like the blip, they call it, and like Tony Stark dying and how it affects Spider-Man himself. Even Mysterio is more really connected with Tony Stark, right? Like he was like,
yes.
I forgot what it was. It's been a while since I watched it. I wasn't able to rewatch it.
He was like yeah, he developed the AR technology that allowed Tony to like relive, you know, his past memories, right. And, you know, he called it barf or whatever.
Yeah,
and,
he got miffed about it.
Yeah. That was like his life's work and everything like that. So like, you know, he wanted revenge on Tony Stark, and he somehow got all of these other people that also got, you know, I guess betrayed by Tony as well. And, you know, that's why a lot of people really don't like this movie, is because it's so tied into the MCU compared to Homecoming, which it is still tied to the MCU, but not as closely as this one is.
Yeah, that's why I see this movie more as an MCU movie than a Spider-Man movie. Like, just because it does deal with a lot more of like the Marvel like cinematic universe stuff rather than like Spider-Man himself. Obviously, it's still important because, you know, Mysterio is the Spider-Man villain. And I am happy Mysterio was actually, like, able to be a villain. Like, that's sick. Like, I've always loved Mysterio because how stupid he is. So I'm glad they made him into, like, an actual, like, threat, Avenger-level threat. But, yeah, it is really cool to see him, like, sort of be, like, a villain. Like, that's really neat. I love Mysterio. But yeah, again, I do have like a lot of the same problems a lot of other people did. Even when I was watching it, like I thought it was good, but it definitely felt a bit like a step down from Homecoming because it just felt less like a Spider-Man movie, which is fine. Like, you know, when you enter the MCU, you definitely are going to lose some of your own identity to sort of be with this greater universe. But I feel like with Spider-Man, we're like, okay, except him, because, you know, we want Spider-Man to you know, to stand out on his own a little bit more. And this movie kind of, I think, goes a little too much into MCU, especially with the Iron Man stuff, because, you know, Iron Man is, you know, dead, spoiler alert, and, you know, he kind of can't have a fourth movie because he's dead. So like all his epilogue stuff is going to be with Spider-Man, which is fine. You know, I think all the Iron Man epilogue stuff was handled pretty good, and showing how much his death affect, you know, Peter Parker. Like, I think that makes up for the Uncle Ben stuff that we didn't get in Homecoming. And, you know, I think the audience will relate more with that because they cared more about Tony Stark because he's been an established character in this universe for like 10 years already. So you'll feel sad with Peter Parker, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
And yeah, and it's cool to see, like, you know, obviously he made a lot of enemies too, and Mysterio will be one of them. And now, you know, Peter Parker had to deal with the fallout of that. And I guess also the change of scenery was kind of nice, you know, 'cause, you know, we're so used to Spider-Man being in New York. It's kind of cool to see him in like Europe and stuff. I think that was a nice change of pace too, as well.
Yeah, I definitely liked this movie when I saw it in theaters. You know, I wasn't sure if I enjoyed it more because, you know, we watched so many MCU movies sort of like back to back to back, you know, seeing Endgame and then this one, you know, it was sort of like icing on the cake for me personally because I love Endgame so much. So seeing Far From Home afterwards, I was like, all right, like, let's get it. And, you know, it, like you said, it is the epilogue to the MCU, but at the same time, it's a Spider-Man movie. So how can you really do that both at once. And, you know, it kind of works out more as a MCU epilogue more than a Spider-Man movie, like you said. But still, you know, it does feel like a John Watts Spider-Man movie. You know, it's still goofy. You know, you got these fucking kids still doing dumb shit. You got the Betty Brant Ned thing that happened, which you know, that was funny when I was watching it in theaters and, you know, shit like that. But, you know, the writing, the moment with the whole like drone thing, every single time I rewatch this movie, I watch that scene and I'm like, man, like I don't know if that was like, you know, something that Peter Parker would have done. I'm not entirely sure. Right. Maybe it's just because of just like, you know, the Stark Tech and all this other shit. But, you know, I don't know. Like that scene gets complained a lot, and like I can see why people complain about it. But, you know, me personally, I was just like, you know, that scene just felt a little out of place in my opinion. But the movie itself, you know, like you said, Mysterio as a villain, you know, him portrayed by Jake Gyllenhaal, you know, fantastic actor. He really does nail that role. And because of this movie, it brought in the idea of the Spider-Verse, because people genuinely thought that he was from another dimension. And then when it was revealed, just like how with like the Vulture, where it was like, haha, it was all a ploy, and, you know, and all of this other shit, I was like, okay, like they actually like sold me on that shit, which is, you know, kind of crazy because, you know, as a Spider-Man fan, I'm like, it's fucking Mysterio. He is the bad guy, right? And, you know, like people were speculating about like the whole multiverse shit, and, you know, that's how I guess No Way Home came to be. But yeah, and then the fight scenes with Mysterio are like some of the best like VFX we've seen in a Spider-Man movie to date. How crazy those scenes are. Like some of them look straight out of from the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon show, which also portrayed Mysterio like very, very well as like a VFX sort of like artist or whatever. Yeah. With like a much smaller team, obviously. But, you know, seeing that portrayed on the big screen with all of these other people that were portrayed by Tony Stark, and how Peter is able to solve it with the help of Michelle Jones, aka MJ, and all of this other stuff, you know. It's still a fun movie, and I definitely still enjoy it, but, you know, it's definitely not the cream of the crop when it comes to Spider-Man movies, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I would probably put it like low A or B, I think. I'll let you decide where it be. Okay.
I think it's B tier. I don't think, maybe on a good day I could put it in A tier, maybe after my first watching of it, but because it's been so many years, you know, and I've seen this movie like a handful of times, I can't in good conscience put it in A tier, but, you know, it's just my opinion, our opinion. It is what it is.
I would definitely put it in B, because again, like I said, just all the, like, I think Mysterio is great, and I do like it as an epilogue to the MCU, but as a Spider-Man movie, I do think it's on the weaker side, because it feels less about Spider-Man and more about the MCU, especially Iron Man. So yeah, that's why I'm very happy or very excited for No Way Home, because it seems to be just a celebration of Spider-Man, right? Like, obviously you have Doctor Strange and you have like some other shit like that, but it's definitely going to be about Spider-Man, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm very excited for that movie. You know, I think Spider-Man along with Batman are like some of the heroes that could really hold their own really well, like by themselves. They don't really need anyone else. So you know, I'm still happy he's part of the MCU, don't get me wrong. Like, I love seeing him interact with the other Avengers and stuff. But when it comes to his own movies, I definitely like to see him more standing out on himself now. And I think we're going to see that starting with, you know, No Way Home after it. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, because like when you look at the Iron Man movies, when you look at the Captain America movies, those are part of the MCU, obviously, but there's not a lot. Well, maybe Captain America Civil War has a lot of, you know, MCU shit in there. But outside of those movies, you know, like Winter Soldier is my favorite MCU movie, and that movie feels very isolated from the other stuff going on within the MCU, and like that movie has a lot of sort of replications. I'm not exactly sure what the word is, but that movie has a lot going on that affects the rest of the other movies and the other parts of the MCU, if you will. But yeah, No Way Home, definitely. No, fucking Far From Home. God damn it. See, look, God damn it. Anyways, the second Tom Holland movie, you know, it's good. It's just that it definitely feels too connected to the MCU for our liking, but it is still a fun ride, and I still enjoy it as a Spider-Man movie. Honestly, I enjoy all of these movies to a certain extent, you know, even as the Amazing Spider-Man 2, despite how much of a train wreck that is, I cannot deny I enjoy watching the Gwen Stacy scenes. I enjoy the goofiness of the fucking Electro with his tooth gap closing and the dubstep music, and you know, it just shows that it's a product of its time, just like with the Sam Raimi movies, just like with these movies.
very
movies.
2000s, yeah.
Yep. So, I think that this tier list, I can agree with. We might have slightly differing opinions, but I think that, overall I'm happy with how we rank these movies. But
yeah, this is basically what I had in my mind when I was looking at it. I'm like, yeah, this is about where I would put everything.
But yeah, is there anything else you'd like to say, good Saw?
No, I think that's everything.
All right, so thank you guys for listening to the Travis and Damian podcast, episode 76. We will see you guys 2 weeks from now with our review of Spider-Man No Way Home and our end-of-the-year game review sort of thing.
Yeah, it's going to be another long podcast. Get ready for that. I see you.